Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Friday Endurance Championship. A new day, a new round, but the track is not very hospitable to the drivers today. We are, of course, at Zandvoort. What a track we got here for you. 2 hours for the continuation of the championship. Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Joshua Devonshire and Jake the Bosmeister Boswell in the booth with you tonight. Joshua, it is a difficult racetrack.
Yeah, very, very tight, very difficult to overtake. I'm sure the drivers will attest to that, and they'll have been practicing because, you know, as you say, this is very, very difficult. Not an awfully long track, a lot of places to make mistakes, though, and very deceiving in some places.
Well, of course, round 4, meaning that we're getting close, if not to the midpoint in the championship season. We should have a fairly clear picture of who our contenders are going to be. And, well, I'm actually curious to see who they are myself. I actually haven't gotten a chance to look at the championship standings after the dust settled from a week ago. This track so unlike any other circuit. It's got high banks, it's got very twisty turns, it's got technical turns, it's got blind turns. It's a little bit of everything. Surprised to see the McLarens running well up front.
Yeah, the McLarens seem to be quite strong, but not quite as strong as the Bentleys around here a lot of the time. And from what I also understand, this track really is more or less Porsche country. So no, I was expecting the Porsches to be very strong here. Walmouth coming in second with the in practice so far in the number 72. So not by an awful lot either, 0.003 of a second. So not an awful lot in it, but McLaren, Porsche, and Bentley running top 3. That is kind of what I'd expect to see, as we see Ruppert kind of go a little bit wide there to pull into the pits, getting in the way of the 141 Bentley a little bit. We almost saw a bit of a collision there, but good to see that we didn't.
Well, of course, it is a 2-hour race, but before that we have qualifying, and we have Pro and Silver together with you. And it's going to be a battle of 2 different championships. And, well, they're going to have to coexist on a track where lap traffic could be a bit of a problem. There's not a whole lot of great places to make a pass around here, let alone lap a car slower than you. It's always a worry when you come to tracks such as Zandvoort. Of how and where you catch traffic. It could cost you. We've already seen in this championship traffic costing certain drivers, getting tangled up in battles that aren't their own. Today, it could be a cautionary tale, as Mikowski is the quickest in this practice session, but by only 3/1000ths of a second over Woolman. That's incredibly close.
We'll have to see if the 627 can take this through to qualifying as well, because I think that qualifying position is going to be everything for this race.
Yeah, right. You are. Qualifying ultimately important here. We like to say that there's some places qualifying not necessarily important. Well, if you were with us for GT4 racing last night, you will have known that qualifying really didn't matter. We had cars come all the way from the back to finish on the podium at Donington Park. Well, I'm afraid to say the same cannot be said for Zandvoort. You absolutely want to start up front here. What you're going to see in the race is you're going to see this Constantina effect, this train throughout the entire field, big clumps, big groups of cars. And usually when you get big groups of cars like that, that will create incidents. We'll knock on wood and hope that does not happen and the drivers have put their sensible pants on today.
Yeah, it's as we're saying, just overtaking out here, it's so tight, and usually the racing standards that we see, they usually are up to standard, and these guys are like the best that we have here in RCI, at least in theory, because this is the pro silver split. So again, everything we say right now, Jesse, these guys already know. These guys know how important qualifying is. They know what they're getting themselves in for, and they know exactly what they need to pull out of the bag for the next session.
Well, it's going to be very spirited. Also, finding a place. The only other thing we haven't talked about with track space here is finding space. You don't get too many invalidations here, mostly because there's not a whole lot of places you can invalidate without going into the wall. But track space with this many cars could be just a bit of a problem. And of course, the 73 team, the Excel by Ridden Green team, will be looking for a good starting spot, but the Ballage Ukraine team in the Bentley will be looking to rebound. If I had to give my pick based on the strength of the McLarens in practice, I'd have to give it to the 73, but, well, that's not how racing works. We still have to run the races, and otherwise it'd just be predicting, wouldn't it? Well, really qualifying underway 15 minutes. In the qualifying session, the pros and the high silvers out on the track at the same time. It's going to get busy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, a bit of a coffee break in the booth here. No, absolutely. And qualifying first one out is the 74 McLaren. I believe they have just let the Porsche of this is that 72 of Walmouth go through. I believe that is Felix Roper, again, very, very strong driver. Maximilian Walmouth, there we go, the 72. There's the 911, that's the one we're talking about. Walmouth's been very, very strong in qualifying in the recent races. I remember Kyle Army, for the longest time, we thought they were going to be on pole until they were, I believe, beaten out at the very last lap, I believe it was. I might be remembering wrong there, but Walmouth, very, very strong in qualifying. It's a track that is very, very strong and favors the 911 in a lot of different ways. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can pull out the bag.
Could be a return to glory for the 72 team. Walmouth behind the wheel now. Keep in mind, 3 weeks ago, they won the first round. So round number 1 went to the 72. Round number 2 went to the 141 for the Ballas team. And round number 3 went to the 73 car. So 2 Excel by Renwelton teams have won, but well, they're not the ones leading. Oh, excuse me, they are the ones leading the championship right now, but it is very close. We will have the live standings after 3 rounds following qualifying as fast laps have commenced here. Maximilian Wilmoth on the first lap, and if this track looks a little bit different than it did in Formula One, well, that's because this is pre-Formula One renovation.
Yeah, so the banking, so correct me if I'm wrong here, Jesse, but the banking at turn 3 is nowhere near as extreme as it was in Formula 1, because that was a recent thing. And we're actually on board with Walmouth now coming through the final. So no, we're not. I was the wrong part of the track for me, I'm sorry. I got a little bit confused just looking at the thing there. The final turn is also not quite as banked as it is in real life now, if I'm remembering correctly, right, Jesse?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. This track now, in real life, has banking that would put NASCAR to shame. It is massive banking. You can't walk up it barely. And when F1 was here, they did not have a general consensus on what was the quickest line through turns 3, 4, and 5. So that's probably not going to be a problem here in ACC as we use the older version, the pre-F1 renovation era track here. So there is still bankings in turns 3 and 4, and there is still banking here in the final turn. It is just not nearly as progressive. So they will try and stay as low to the bottom as possible. And Wilmoth comes across the line, sets the first lap of 34.230. Is the quickest lap so far, and a pretty good one. Rates in the 74, about 0.2 off, and half a second off is Kwiatkowski in the 27. And now Makowski beats that and goes to third, just about 0.4 off the overall pace. Nobody able to touch the 72 just yet. Smeets fastest in silver by a 10th over Hawa.
Yeah, Lord 34 is a very, very quick time around here in these cars, and it's not the quickest that we've seen. I'm definitely expecting Walmouth to improve on that time, and it looks like they will, looking at the timing sheet now, but we'll come back to that. Stropper in the 185 Aston coming through down into the hairpin now. Looking very, very strong. Number 12 running third in silver. Smeets in the 95 Porsche running first in silver, speaking of silver class. Very, very nice livery. It reminds me kind of like a raspberry muffin in a way. I don't know why that came to mind. It just did with the pink and white, but it is very, very pretty. And Walmouth, the current pole sitter, currently, according to my timing sheet, just ahead of their Delta, running a tiny bit wide, dipping two wheels onto the gravel. It doesn't seem like it's going to affect them too badly as they cross the final corner, but they are slightly down on their time, and that isn't going to be enough to improve.
No, it's sure not. Everybody chasing the 72. Kwiatkowski does go back up to fourth place. Kwiatkowski and Metkowski, do you feel sorry for us yet? Probably going to get those names reversed at some point today. Koroshaven went up to fourth place briefly, but Chris Melbourne and the Volante Racing Team goes to pole. I wouldn't have called that with the big Bentley, a 34.152. Current mark to beat Wilmoth is 2 or 0.7 off, but it doesn't matter. Koroshaven comes back through, makes it a Bentley 1-2, a 33.990. That's absolutely flying in the B.
I like the pun there, Jesse. Flying B, yes, but the 141, that's a crazy time, a high 33, so into the 33s now. Are we going to see more of them? I think we will. Chris Melbourne actually a little bit up in their time as well. Nicholas Alvarado in the number 7 McLaren, I think they have just crossed the line. Not quite enough to make too much happen. Still P16, a second off the pace of Koroshaven. And they'll be looking to do what they can to make up that time and catch up with the rest of the class. There's a big cluster of pros above the first place silver, so they'll be looking to at least get into that pack and as high up as they can. The number 74 McLaren coming around one of the bank turns now, coming out the final turn, and number 6 again, according to my timesheet, isn't up on their time. They will cross the line, but nothing will happen. They will remain in 6th place.
I just want to cover something that I find a bit amusing as Krzysztof Makowski comes to the line. Looking like they may improve here out of 5th place. In fact, they do go all the way to 10th, 69/100ths off, but it is all for nothing as Chris Melbourne for Volante has come back through in the Bentley, a 33.747, the mark to beat, and the times keep tumbling down, and we haven't got to halfway. What I was going to say is I find it quite amusing. We've got Kwiatkowski, Jarzbowski, and Makowski all qualifying on the track at the same time. That's incredible stuff. Felix Rupert set an incredible time, a 34.1. That'll slot him into the 4th place in the 71 Ferrari. What does Martin Lawrence have? Already qualified 12th. I'd like to say Martin Lawrence has had good fortune here in the past, but that was ever so long ago for Martin Lawrence, and still top 10, 1 second off the overall pace, 34.809. Strappa, by the way, leading in silver in the 185. Smeets second, 1/10 behind, and 1 100th behind Smeets is Garrett Fisher. So very close up. Actually, I just noticed second through fourth is only 3/100ths of a second's difference. Very close indeed.
Yeah, it's the sort of tight qualifying that we've come to kind of expect, actually, a little bit in previous races. We've seen it be this tight before, but given that this track, I said favours the Porsche, but looking at Walmouth, I'm tempted to say otherwise. I'm tempted to say maybe the Porsches are even struggling a little bit here compared to the McLarens and the Bentleys. Bentley's appearing very strong indeed, but Renoir in the 199 crossing the line that will put them into provisional 10th, just under a second off of the lead car. They will pull off and go into the pits, and Smeets in the 95 silver class Bentley in second place. They were provisional pole at one point in time. They will be looking to take that back, and it seems to be they may be in a position to be able to do just that.
Already the fans of the teams chiming in the chat, cheering on the 141 team, who's currently second in qualifying, and why not? We love to see what you're thinking. And speaking of what people are thinking, we are sometimes privy to what the stewards are considering. They sometimes clue us in, and some of the stewards are really shocked at the Bentleys up front having that much pace. I am being told by one of our experts here that obviously the ACC had an update, and there might have been a BOP update at some point, and we just haven't been here with the Bentley since then, and that might explain how they have went from, I would say, relative competence to being a front runner, because like traditionally, Joshua, this was a Porsche racetrack, but it is all Bentley so far.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was coming from. Like when I turned it and I announced to everyone, quite wrongly it seems, that the Porsche is very strong here. No, it seems to be that the Bentley, you said something's happened in the game update and the BOP. It does seem to be that the Bentley is immensely fast around here. And I can kind of see why. I mean, it's very, very good on the curbs, especially through the chicane, and there are a few kind of curbs. You see just there, you see Svenchek kind of riding that and taking quite a lot of it, and that, I believe, is where a lot of the Bentley strength comes in.
Well, I do not mean in any way to take anything away from Chris Melbourne or Kuroshaven. They're very fast drivers. One of those teams has already won a race this season. It's not the Bentley or them that's surprising. It's this track that is surprising us. Speaking of Bentley, what does Svenchek have? Down in 9th place, and will improve, but will stay 9th with a 34.611. And Harry Conway, the stewards box with Tom Bryant providing the curiosity and the speculation, and Harry Conway chatting to us, telling us that it is possibly the update that has given the Bentley a little extra pace. And again, love that insider info, and certainly it has shaken things up here near the midway point in this championship. Only 3 minutes 40 seconds left in qualifying as Alvarado goes to 13th place in the number 7. A 34 for him makes him 1 second out of the overall pace. As the times continue to come down, everybody keeps getting closer to one another. Well, that is, of course, everybody except Chris Melbourne, who still has a 1/4 of a second in the bank over Kuroshaven. That's incredible stuff. But what does Mikowski have to say about it in the 627? Second place, 0.135 off. That's a 33.882. It's coming down.
Yeah, the 67 McLaren breaking up the group of Bentleys up at the top there. And again, just to touch on the topic, just checking the YouTube chat, Wolf Motorsport with the Bentley Bob on the way. I think that might be the case at some point in time if things continue this way, but we'll have to see. At some point in time, P11, the 95 Porsche Smeets, in first place in the silver class again. They have been able to pull a little bit of time out of that Porsche. Looking on with Fisher now again in the 101, currently third in the silver class. 101 Aston Martin coming into the second to last corner. They appear to be, I'm not sure where they are on the time actually. They're just not quite on my timing sheet apparently, but we're about to find out with the last corner. Coming down to the line, is it enough to improve from P16? It is not. No, not quite enough to make any positions up at all, but I mean, still P3 in class. It's a pretty solid place to start.
Yeah, it's not too bad. What I'd be worried about is Smeets. Of course, you do not group up with your class. You wherever you qualify is wherever you start. So Smeets would have a row advantage on everybody else in silver if they started there, and that is almost priceless to have. Certainly for Strop and Fisher, they would just want to get a little bit closer so they stay in contact with the silver leader, the high silver leader. Orlando Rates in fourth place. They were one of the front runners in practice, but are currently only fourth best here. And Felix Rupert continues the strong showing in the 71 Ferrari. There's a lot of tracks that this particular Ferrari has been good at that I wouldn't have called at the beginning of the season. I guess whenever you're good, you're just good. And speaking of which, where is this going to put them? It is going to be an improvement, a 34.152, but they'll stay fifth.
I mean, fifth isn't absolutely terrible, but we'll talk about the row advantage with Samuel Smeet. Sorry, we were saying about the row advantage and kind of being invaluable. However, that's a lot of pressure from behind as well from the two pro cars. So Alvarado and Stropper may have a little bit of a saving grace going on there. If Smeets can in fact deal with the pressure of being pushed by guys from a higher class. Looking at the time sheet now, not long left of qualifying now, just 20 seconds. Looking at the timing sheet, it does seem to be that some drivers are up on their time, but is it going to be enough to do anything? We'll have to find out. It seems to be we're coming down to the hairpin section now. Very, very tight complex, very heavy on the brakes. Surprisingly heavy, in fact, using the banky to kind of pull the car around, ride the outside curb just a little bit, coming to the second to last corner, using all of the track, two wheels into the grass slightly even. Coming into the last corner now, completely flat from this point on, staying flat all the way through to the end. Is it going to be enough? I'm not sure. It seems to be they're pulling offline, so I think that's an aborted lap right there.
Yeah, didn't like something about that. Didn't matter anyway. They knew they weren't going to get another lap. Just go ahead and pull off the track. Qualifying is over. All the flying laps will count as everybody coming to the line. No major improvements. Minnow Crozen into the 7th place position as the final few cars left on the track, 3 of which I'm pretty sure is the 180. No, they are already done. The 837 and the 102. I was wondering if they snuck an extra lap in there. They did not. Final 3 cars coming to the line. It's going to be the 70, the 404, and this car, Lucas Stokes and the Team Snail Esports 166 will be the final car to qualify. Down in 4th place in the silver class, can Stokes bump themselves up here for the 2-hour race? Coming to the line, and yes, indeed, they're going to go to pole in the 166. The Bentley's coming alive at Zandvoort and steals it. The last car on the track beats the fastest in high silver, the 166 on pole. That was brilliant stuff.
That's again the 166 Bentley, absolutely totally flying lap, and is, as you say, is enough to take that from Smeets and actually, I believe, get a row advantage. Well, not be a full row advantage, a full row ahead, but at least on the next row of the grid. So. Yeah, that's as you said, that is kind of monumental around here. But Ryan Renoir, very quick driver, a lot of pressure from behind for Stokes, especially with Lawrence ahead as well. Lawrence again, very, very quick. Lot to live up to for Stokes.
Well, there you have it, folks. That was qualifying. Very spirited stuff. We often have interesting qualifyings at Zandvoort. Well, that is how they will line up today, but what do you say we check out how they're lining up in the championship? Well, here are the points. After 3 of 8 rounds, the Rinwelton, excuse me, I'm on the wrong page. Give me one. The Excel Racing by Rinwelton Green Team in the 73 McLaren, they lead the heap, 150 points. The Team Ball is Ukraine team has 139, 11 points back. Nothing to fret about there. That is easily doable in just one race. Third place, the final podium spot held by Excel Racing by Rinwelton Orange in the 71 Ferrari. They've got 128 points. That's, again, another 11 points behind. Fourth place, the Danglin Wang team with 121. Like and subscribe rounds out the top five with 119. Excel Racing by Rinwelton Turquoise, the 72 team, has had a rough go of it of late, but they are on 117. Volante Racing, 96. Silver Racing Team, 93. Front Left Tire Scrubber Esports, 81. And rounding out the top 10, the Connection Lost Racing, 404 with 71. Behind them, it is very close between all of these teams where a position definitely makes a difference, and in some cases could bump you up several spots. The Boatley Maritime Services Racing team in 11th, and the Forza Italia PL Esports team. Green Loafers Engineering, Carbon Sim Sports, and the 199, the top 15. Behind them, the ATK Academy, the Desperate Measures, 555 team, the Jardier Community Team, Fringlish in the 84, with the Jean Lacey Esports Academy team, which I don't think is here today, and the Excel Racing by Rinwelton White team, the top 20. And here are the teams that have had a mighty struggle and or have missed races to this point. The 7, the 114, who are still listed as participating, and the 111 and the 23 have retired from the championship. Moving on to Silver. Silver is a bit wider in the points gap. You don't usually see this in Silver, but the Balasso Squadra Corso 185 AMR Vantage team with 189, the High Speed Ninjas team 167. And behind them in third place is the Turn 1 Pro-Am team at 159. AOSP is in fourth place at 156, just a few points out of the top three. And Team Volmont by Prime Motorsports on 113, some way back. Only 1 point behind them, though, is the Turn 1 Silver team. TSE Board Dads in seventh place goes Toblerone, only separated by a handful. And then behind them a little ways, you got Turn 1 Honda, or excuse me, you have, Turn 1 Honda Pro-Am. And then rounding out the top 10, Volante Racing Academy. And the second page of High Silver, you got Team To Be Determined, yet they haven't, we're 4 races in, folks, and you haven't TBD'd yet. I find that quite amusing, but they have 82 points, and behind them is Comp Racing with 34. And then we get to the teams that don't have points. It's, of course, Honey Badger and the 579, who is taking no further part. It's a rare season where the pro teams are closer than the AM teams. Usually we see it the other way around. There's a dominant pro car, but that hasn't happened this season, Joshua.
No, it seems to be that I think with endurance races, obviously, you get a mix of drivers. Obviously, it's 2 drivers per car. And I feel like sometimes, maybe, just maybe, that when it's not a single driver, you kind of do get the kind of mix of performance. You know, different drivers are good at different tracks, and it tends to mix up the order. And obviously, different cars are better at different tracks, as we're seeing today with the Bentley. So it's a very interesting championship. It's not clear cut, and I don't think it's going to be all the way through to the end.
That 166 grabbing the pole in High Silver, how big will that be for that team? For all these teams, though, the job one is survive lap one. Well, job one is survive turn one, but then lap one and just get some space to race. That's easier said than done around Zandvoort. It's not a track known for spacious accommodations or running in clean air. And even the leaders of this race, like the 70, the 627, and the 141, are going to find traffic sooner rather than later It is a fairly large track, but it's also a track that you seem to always have cars that get behind very quickly. Well, that all being said, turn one, lap one's the focus, but beyond that, 67 minutes the stint limits. Each each team must take on an additional driver at some point to satisfy the pit requirements. They'll likely only come down pit road the one time. They are not required to take fuel or tires at all, only to change the driver. So usually, if your race is going well, you're going to try and get as close to that 67-minute stint limit as you can. If your day is going a bit worse than that, you might go ahead and decide to offload that first driver a bit more quickly. Strategy has dictated and changed the way that these races are run. Do you expect anything strange today?
I would actually expect it, Jesse. I really would, given how tight this track is, and we'll see how difficult it is for the drivers to overtake. Obviously, these guys, their racecraft is, their racecraft is, frankly, amazing. As I said, with this being the pro class, but even still, no matter how good the racecraft is, it's a very, very, very difficult track to pass another car on. It's very difficult to follow another car on, especially as you drop down the hill. It's not an easy track to race on. It's a great time trial track. It's a great qualifying track, but it's a racetrack. Maybe not in these cars. We will find out. But that means that the easiest way to get by someone, going back to the point in hand, is going to be potential strategy. Do you undercut the guys ahead of you? Do you overcut them? How do you defend a position in that situation? How do you respond to a strategy to the cars ahead or behind? And how do you control basically the cars around you in terms of when you pit, how you stop, and who you put in the car at any given time?
Well, we're on the pace lap, but there's already been the first drama. Robert McCall will not be driving in this race as they did not, according to them, they messed up when they joined. So they will not be racing today. So they're the McCall family, down one McCall today, rather unfortunately. Hello to everyone in chat. And Jake the Bosmeister Boswell has a bit of a fan in the chat. Carlos says, wow, just in time, that cameraman. Absolutely. Jake does a great job.
Yeah, we need to show Jake a bit more love, I think. The silent savior of the stream. Without Jake, the stream wouldn't be a thing, really. I mean, we need someone to handle the cameras and to basically babysit me and Jesse a little bit, really. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that is the job of a broadcaster, is to keep us on task and talking about the right things. And for the record, I show Jake Boswell a lot of love, just usually it isn't on camera. Coming around the final couple of corners, getting ready to go green here. As a reminder, all Friday races are live stewarded. We have a armada of stewards that are prepped and ready to go, expecting the worst. And, well, if you've ever raced at Zandvoort, you probably would be too. Joshua, you bring up an excellent point of undercuts, overcuts. We've seen that dictate races before. I think you're right. That might be a part of it here. But before we can get to that, we have a green flag. 2 by 2 around the corner. And as far as the eye can see, all of the drivers, pro and high silver, get ready for the midway point in the Friday Endurance Champ season. Chris Melbourne will lead them down to green in the 70, and he will be joined by Mikowski in the 627. And here we go, green down into turn one. It's a clean getaway for Melbourne, but you can't say that for Mikowski, who Koroshaven down to his inside. A little bit of a bump, and Koroshaven up to second as they go single file for the first 3 rows. Side by side is Rupert back there, trying to get a place from Woolman.
Seems to be that the McLarens have made a bit of a clean break. Looking at the time, actually you don't need to look at time sheet. Looking at the cars themselves, that is 2 McLarens ahead. That's one of the Bentleys, I believe, that's dropped back as well. But it seems to be that we have kind of spread out a little bit, though. Most of the field looks like it has gotten away cleanly. Looking at the map, there's no one stuck. Doesn't seem to be any incidents. And I think that was just the 70 full, giving it a little bit of a look there, under pressure from Koroshaven in the 141.
Well, that was a pretty darn good getaway. I'm sure the steward, if it wasn't, we have had a tendency to mess up and say that the start was good, and then the stewards immediately say, what are you talking about? We have 100 accidents. I will defer to them, obviously, as we always do in the booth, but that looked pretty good from my perspective. A couple of fender benders in the pack. And by the way, the 95 is leading the silver field. So what in the world happened to Stokes in the 166? They're off the podium in high silver now.
Maybe we spoke too soon, and maybe there was something that kind of just happened at the back of the field. We'll see, but that seems to be that number 74 taking a move, looking on the outside of turn one. Not really. Actually, it's one of the few places you can kind of overtake, but not maybe on the outside, going side by side. The 627 having the inside line and the dominant line that will allow them to keep the position, but does that put the 74 in the position for a switchback? I don't think it does, coming down into the hairpin. Very, very tight corner. Speaking of more action...
You don't want to be side by side!
Oh, no, that's...
We got a car off. Oh, watch out, watch out! Oh, and it's collision. That was a collision there with one of the McLarens. Was that Alvarado that he collided with? I think it must have been.
Yeah, that was so much happening all at once. He had to go a little bit quiet to kind of take it all in, but it seems to be that one of the cars, I think it was the Bentley, kind of hit the curb on the inside.
Oh, here he goes!
Yeah, that's the 74 on the inside. Is it going to be enough? It looks like it is. Maybe a little bit of a door bang there, actually, but not enough to make a huge difference in the race. But now the 627 having the inside cut line again. We're still side by side, going down into the braking zone for the hairpin section. It can be an opportunity, but it looks like the 74 is actually being pushed by the Bentley a little bit. The Bentley taking a look on the outside, not quite enough to make anything happen. The 627 had a little bit of breathing room with the fight that's going on behind, but the 141 also under pressure from the 72 of Walmuth. You know, we did say before like how strong the Porsches were around here and how strong the Bentleys actually are. So it's a case of the Bentley has the pace to keep up with the McLarens up ahead despite being under pressure, but can it find a way around?
Well, Stokes, who qualified on high silver pole, is back into a podium position to 166, but something must have happened to cycle them. They would have had to have lost about 6 spots to get that far back, and one must wonder what happened there. The stewards are reporting only one real major incident between Moss and Heath, who are in the 3 and the 100 respectively at the back of the pack, and well, I mean, it's nice to have that confirmed, but it's also pretty obvious as Garrett Fisher is having a whale of a time here, and not in a good way, as they have went ahead and dropped all the way back to 16th and 3rd in class, and that would give Stokes the 2nd place position back. Meanwhile, all that melee going on in the middle of the field, Chris Milburn's having none of it for Volante Racing, out in front and pulling away.
Yeah, Chris Melbourne right now looking totally untouchable almost. But again, as we've seen in these races, anything can happen. You know, staying consistent for 2 hours around this track is a very difficult task indeed. The 627 going completely off the track there for a moment on corner exit. But you know, again, the pack spacing out just a little bit. Not as much pressure as there was in previous laps so far. But again, how long until that is not the case? How long until these cars close up again? But plenty of action in the midfield. In the position 13, the car number 95, the Porsche Sam Smith, the lead car in the silver class at this moment in time, with all of the crazy that has just been going on. And it seems to be that the battle for 3rd place is also heating up. 74 McLaren being almost, I think, overtaken. Yes, the Bentley having the outside, the 141 Bentley having the outside line, backing out just before, isn't able to tighten the lineup to try and get the better exit. But again, this section of the track isn't the best for overtaking. You can see it's barely wide enough for 1 car, let alone 2. So is it going to just be a matter of time until that Bentley gets rammed? Also, dare I say that Makowski might even be pulling away a little bit. So Koroshavin might be realizing they're losing out sat behind the 74 and needs to find a way around, and that pressure is going to mount up, I think.
Very close stuff here. The onboard cam there for a minute for Koroshavin, looking at Orlando Rates in front of him. The 74 and the 141 going at it for the final podium spot. And Stevenson in the 102 Honda has joined the caboose of this field. Don't know exactly what happened to the 102, but they are dead last now. And that is unfortunate for the only Honda in the field. but they are continuing their pursuit. I agree with the sentiment in chat. That was a fairly good start to the race. That was about as good as you could have ever expected to have here at Zandvoort. And you mentioned earlier about the fender contact. I know a lot of people probably disagree with this, but there is no good way to pass here, and a little bit of fender rubbing isn't the end of the world. I know every driver would appreciate a very clean pass, but let's be realistic. Look where we're racing. It is not a track that lends itself to very much clean racing, and the fact that we've gotten this far is pretty darn impressive. And what of Garrett Fisher in his 101 going off track and nearly causing a major collision and just crazy stuff, but all held together. And what must Orlando Rates be thinking? Was challenging Mikowski for second place a lap and a half ago, and now can't get the 141 Bentley off the back wing of his car.
No, the Bentley is showing its pace around here. You see just how much more of the curb it can take just from that shot alone we just saw there of the 141. But I still think the 141 is losing time going up on the inside. It looks like they might have a line through. It's all going to come down to corner exit. The McLaren running onto the curb. A little bit of a tap there. But what about door rubbing, Jesse? There you go. There you have it.
That was a little more than a touch.
Yeah, it was a little love tap. But yeah, no, the Bentley will make that stick. Very, very good on the brakes, the Bentley. Despite its size, you would think that it weighs the same as a small moon, and maybe it does, but the one thing I'll give it, the Bentley has so good brakes.
I'll never forget what I was told by then Bentley driver Jordan Pepper. I was told that actually the Bentley is the second or third lightest car on the GT3 grid. Believe it or not, I know it must be all hollow then, I assume.
Much like my brain.
Oh dear. Well, the 199 of Ryan Renoir has worked their way inside the top 10 and now sets their sight on Martin Lawrence, who's in 9th, I've just noticed. Good race for the 404. Oh, and just as I say that, Ryan Renoir, was that a touch or was that loose under braking?
I think they ran a little bit wide onto the grass and just lost the rear end on the curb, so not the best. We will see it again.
Oh, well spotted.
A little bit on the curb. A little bit too fast.
That right there. That's a race-saving move.
Yeah, that could have been so easily into the wall. I've seen that so many times in the past around here on this track. On that corner, that wall is very unforgiving. And, very, very lucky to not be in it. No, just, again, it goes to show just how tight this track really is. And even when you're alone on track with nobody around you, the track itself is out to kill you, frankly.
Wolf Motorsport made a comment earlier I thought was pretty funny. Bentley BOP on the way. Maybe. It might just be this track. I think this current BOP we're working on we've had for a little while. I'm sure Harry Conway will correct me if I'm incorrect in that, but haven't had an ACC update in a few weeks as far as I'm aware, so it might just be this track now favors it, just like other cars. Sometimes you know what they say, there's courses for horses and all that, so a little bit of GT, or a little bit more touring car than GT out there. Well, if your last name is Shedden, then perhaps so. But for the 199, that was a big moment, and to save it out of the wall and only lose 2 spots, I'm going to agree with Carlos here. #blessed.
I mean, it's a shame that the 44 Mercedes of the McCalls isn't racing, because I can't make my pun this week. So,
you know what? I want to hear it. Go ahead.
Well, no, I made one last week at Silverstone, and you were saying that the 44 was blessed with a position, and it went right over everybody's head. So, I'm going to try and squeeze one in each week.
I see.
Yeah, the 44 Mercedes can't really go wrong with that one. But yeah, no, I made one in the first race, and I've made one in the race last week, and I was hoping to make one in this race. But back on topic, the number 3, position 21, Moss, with a 15-second time penalty. So I'd imagine that would have been given by the stewards. Now, I haven't had the slip of paper to tell me exactly what that penalty was for, but I would imagine it would be something to do with a potential lap one or at some point in this race, an incident that has happened.
Well, you are so smart. 15-second penalty for car number 3 for taking out the 100. Penalty was originally a drive-through due to lap 1, but because position was given back, they reduced it back down to a 15-second penalty. So the stewards always judge lap 1 penalties harsher because you should know better and should drive a bit more carefully when all the cars are all bunched up. So what would normally happen if that happened on any other lap, that'd be a 15-second penalty reduced to a 5. So on the first lap, that's a drive-through reduced to a 5 or a 15.
Yeah, the 95 under pressure from the 837 Pro Class Bentley, holding them off going through Hulgenholz into the the tight hairpin that leads from, I believe it's still in Sector 1. We're going up the hill, still under a lot of pressure. Very difficult to get the braking zone for this fight. You brake just slightly at the top of the hill, and this is what I was talking about in Jesse. This is what I was talking about in quali, Jesse. That despite the silver car having the gap on the other silvers, but being sandwiched between the pros, having that pressure, it seems to be that it is pushing Smeets. I do believe they are pulling away from the rest of the silver field, but for how long will that be the case, and for how long will the pressure convert from pushing to be faster to having to go defensive and slowing down?
Well, I don't know, but I have been alerted to the fact that the 74 of Orlando Rates is now running 9th place. Keep in mind, they were running 4th a little bit ago. Perhaps contact, I'm being told, between the 141 or a similar car up inside the top 5. So Orlando Rates back down to 9th place. And apparently it wasn't his mistake. It was somebody else's. So that's going to be unfortunate for the 74. We might have this, in fact, as this is Rates. Oh, a dive bomb to the inside for the 72.
That's
and
a murder.
Classic turn 1 takeout.
Oh. And other cars avoiding action. I believe that was Lorenk in the 404 we saw have to go onto the curb there. But no, that was a murder.
Maximilian Wilmoth there, not the move that they had in mind in the 72. And rather strangely, his teammate tattling on him, telling us that happened.
You know, no honor amongst thieves, as I like to say. Looking at Mikowski, the 627, still under pressure from Cora Shaven in the 141. And Melbourne at this point in time, nowhere to be seen out in front. 6.3 seconds ahead, according to the timing sheet within the game on the left-hand side there. But I think at that point, you know, it's becoming more and more irrelevant unless Melbourne makes a mistake. All they have to do is keep it consistent. But Cora Shaven will be looking to find a way around the 627 of Mikowski. Going around the final corner now, they will have a slight slipstream. It seems to be that they are within the range, but only just 0.6 of a second. That is about slipstream range, but this isn't a very long straight. It's not a long time to take advantage. But again, I think at this point in time, Cora Shaven will be waiting for the McLaren to just make a mistake and to capitalize on that.
Well, the 141 was up into 3rd place when that incident occurred between the 72 and the 74. And Corshaven will be happy that they did get around that before the Porsche caught up. And again, the 141 on the back of Mikowski now. What does the McLaren do here? It's not necessarily the widest car, but perhaps on this track it doesn't have to be. But it just looks like it's struggling with pace, with grip in the corners a little bit.
That seems to be the case. I mean, the McLaren can get a little bit, what's the word, back-endy maybe, very, very unstable on the rear if it's not dialed in right. And that's actually another really good point, Jesse. With this being an endurance race and with the car being shared between 2 people, maybe this is also a case of the car is more set up for one driver than it is maybe another. Maybe you've got one faster driver on the team and you set the car up more for them to kind of take full advantage of the car, and the slower driver kind of adapts? Or do you find that middle ground where both drivers are maybe a little bit slower but happier with the car overall, and it's kind of the safer bet? I know when I've done endurance races myself in the past, the setup is a massive consideration for the car. and maybe that is something that we are seeing in action at the moment. Either way, as I say, the 141, you can kind of tell, you can feel it from here, the desperation, wanting to get by, the feeling of being held up, the feeling of seeing Melbourne pulling ahead even more. I mean, 7.2 seconds ahead at this point, and that will be the 837 making a move on Sam Smeets on the 95 Porsche that is still in the lead for silver class, but that buffer is now gone. That pro car that was kind of separating the 95 from the 166, and in fact the rest of a good chunk of silver now getting by through turn one, just slipping onto the inside. And now now Smeets is going to be under pressure from cars within their class. So again, it's all kicking off down in silver.
Yeah, it sure is. Whatever happened to the 166 Bentley as they go off in the background? Was that Stokes again? Yeah, Stokes was off there. They're going to lose a position to Rossi. Just overdrove over the curb and a position lost. So back down to third in class is the 166 as they've had quite an adventure. They clearly have the pace to go up there and take the fight to Schmeets, but they certainly are having a hard time keeping it on the racetrack because they qualified on pole on a row of their own. They ended up fourth in class. They drove all the way back to second, all the way back to the bumper of the 95, the leading Porsche in their class, and now back down to third. And you know what they say about repeating the same thing over and over? It's tantamount to madness.
Well, if that's the case, I'm kind of insane, it would seem. But yeah, no, Stokes having a bit of an adventure of a time, as you say, kind of playing in the sandbox a little bit. It seems to be that they just hit the curb a little too hard, and I think if the curb wasn't so harsh, that maybe they'd have gotten away with it just about. But unfortunately, Zandvoort be Zandvoort, and I've said the Bentley was pretty good on the curbs, but again, maybe in places depending on how you actually ride them. So Stokes will be chasing down the cars up ahead. The 141 of Korshaven still on the back of that 627 McLaren, putting on the pressure, and at this point, almost taking a bit of a look on the inside there, but the 627 cutting off and closing the door, not allowing any space for that huge moon of a car to get through. Now, we call it the Boatley for a reason, as it runs a little bit wide, losing a little bit of time. Actually, that the gap is certainly bigger than it was a moment ago, but it seems to be, it is a case of that the Bentley does have the pace. A little bit of a scrap going down for the P9, as it would seem, with the 27 Bentley between the 501 Ferrari and the 74 of Rates. So Rates making up for the slight tap earlier on into T1. We'll be looking to dispatch these cars as quickly as possible, going flat through the final turn. And I mean, we've seen turn one be a bit of an overtaking opportunity, but I don't think they're going to be close enough to really take full advantage of it this time around.
Well, for Jarzabowski, it's looking pretty decent, but you got to be careful in this situation. I know you want to pass the 27 of Kwiatkowski, but you have to be aware that car Orlando Rates behind you is actually really fast. They're not here. They're not back here because they want to be. They're back here because they got sent back here. So you got to be very careful. If you pull out to make that pass on the 27 and it doesn't come off, you yourself might be the one that ends up being the caboose on the 3-car train. But it's not the end of the world. At least you then get the opportunity to take the position back whenever the 74 were to make the move. This fight continuing. This corner in particular, I just feel like the 627 struggling a little bit into the corner. Some of these corners you can see the car shake as if it's not agreeing with the driver's inputs just a little bit, and that's doing nothing but helping the 141 that seems to be driving so well that they don't even need to be on the tarmac to get that thing turned. And it's such a helpless, frustrating feeling being in a car that isn't necessarily handling as good as you would want it to be, but you're still in a position, you need to defend that position, and indeed, they are definitely trying to get that done. Look at it, the Bentley off of half these corners, dips a tire into the grass, doesn't care.
The Bentley, an incredibly stable car, as you know, we've seen it several points in this race already. Curbs, no problem. Grass, gravel, no problem. So as long as you only dip maybe a tire or two into the gravel, it's nowhere near as deathly. You see a lot of cars actually taking advantage of that. Ryan Wenwa under pressure from Stokes. Stokes looking on the inside in the 166 Bentley, going down into turn one. A little bit of a door rub, I think, there for just a moment. Not enough to make anything major happen. Still not side by side. So Stokes will find a way through. And no, that was that was on Renoir. That is the 199 Pro Class Porsche. They were further up the field, so I'm wondering if at some point in time something has happened to them, Jesse.
Yes, I'm unsure, but I do know what's been happening with the rest of the field. Matter of fact, let's see if this is Ryan Renoir. It is Ryan Renoir, but what happens here into the chicane? And nothing in particular there. But I do have some more penalty reports coming in. I'm going to take a deep breath, ladies and gentlemen. Do bear with me. No further action for contact between the 199 and the 27. No further action for minor contact between the 182 and the 27. No further action for contact between the 185 and the 837. A warning for car 185 for a poor rejoin, causing contact with the 7, deemed net code. Warning for car 101 for dive bombing and then overtaking a car with position not returned. That was on the 185. No further action for minor contact between the 627 and the 74. No further action, minor contact between multiple drivers on multiple corners between the 101 and the 166. No further action for minor contact between the 74 and the 141. 15-second penalty for car 72 for braking late and taking out the 74. We kind of felt like that was coming. Warning for car 74. After being taken out by the 72, the 74 accelerates onto the racing line and making avoidable contact with the 782. 5-second penalty for car 185 for dive bomb with contact with the 101. And a warning for car 74 for avoidable contact and dive bomb on car 27.
Car 74 rates off on the downhill. I'm not sure if we can see that. I'm not entirely certain what happened, but it seems to be that they will fall down the order. Sorry for interrupting you there, Jesse. It was just I caught that on my end of the screen. Very significant off. I believe they lost a fair few places. It looks like they actually have dropped down to P19, so fallen right down the order.
Orlando Rates' race has gone from bad to work. It's nearly catastrophic. Look at the defensive move by Mikowski all the way to the inside fence. He was halfway into pit lane there. He could have called in his pit order verbally. He was so close. That was incredible stuff, and that's what you got to do. If you are the 627, if you're not quite as fast as Koroshavin, it doesn't matter. You are allowed to defend in RCI racing, and that was an absolute textbook defense. Took him all the way to the fence, said, nope, you're going around the outside, sunshine. If you are going to try and do that, it wasn't possible, and you just can't pass here. There's nothing Koroshavin can do. There's nothing that Balla's team can, there's no place to make a pass, and Mikowski knows that. Maybe a little bump there as well. The frustration setting in for the 141 as 11 and a half seconds Chris Melbourne has out in front in the number 70 as it's only getting worse, and maybe Koroshavin the only car that could potentially run them back. What I was saying, folks, was the warning for car 74 for avoidable contact on the 27. That's the 74's second warning. Thus, it is converted into a 5-second penalty and no further action for minor contact between the 74 and the 27. All those incidents, by the way, between the 74 and the 27 were on the same lap, apparently.
That's that's a bit of a hectic moment, I think is what the kids call it. Yeah, no, it's
he's doing it again.
I think we're going to see this is going to be quite repetitive. It's going to be very, very harsh racing. It's just the Bentley pulls alongside just a little bit, but not enough to actually make anything of it. going down. And again, if you fail a move into turn 1, you have to wait. It's for the next opportunity. You can't really get by at any point around here. You can't go on the inside of turn 2 because there is the curb that will send you into either the wall or the car that you're trying to overtake. You can't get around in the hairpin because it simply isn't wide enough for 2 cars, even if you can set it up. So, and all the way down the hill, attempting a move on the outside here would be absolute suicide. So, really at this point in time, around about this point here is the next overtaking opportunity, and the 141 not close enough to make anything of it. So, again, having to wait most of the lap for the next even slight opportunity. Looking on the inside, quickly snaps to the outside, realizing there is not going to be enough space. That Bentley right on the bumper of that 720, coming down into the braking zone, into the chicane. Looking, takes a look on the inside, but not close enough to really, to pull out the slipstream and make anything work. And now having to set up for a move going into turn 1 all over again. And will we see it again? Will we see that 720 pull right to the inside? Because right now, Mikowski defending like an absolute champion.
I'm going to tell you something. As a driver, there's only so many times I'm willing to put up with this move that he's about to do right here again, I bet. He's going to wait for him to get as close as possible, and he's going to do it. There it is. He pulls all the way in. There's only so much of this I can take as the following driver, knowing that I'm quicker on a lap average. At some point, I'm just not going to let you block me anymore. And as a driver, I'm, of course, wearing the driver hat, I would eventually move you out of the way. And I don't know how the stewards would think of that. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't appreciate somebody moving somebody else out of the way. But once again, with the driver hat on, I never really cared what the stewards were thinking.
I mean, at this point in time, Jesse, I think your NASCAR is showing just a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah, but you also have to understand that there's an old saying: cars have fenders for a reason, and they're meant to be used. And I never took too kindly to somebody blocked me a couple of times when I got close. That's fair game, but you do it lap after lap, and you make me brake unnecessarily, and you put me in danger because now I'm having to take evasive action from you. Eventually, I get tired of looking at the back of your car, and maybe just move you just a little bit. Politely suggest you take a wider line in the next corner. That all being said, if Koroshavin did do that, I'm not saying he will do that because he's being very cordial and racing very intelligently, but if he did do that, I'm not sure what the stewards would think about that. As a broadcaster, it'd be very interesting to see how they ruled on that. As a driver, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered this last week as well, Jesse. We were on about kind of stirring up a little bit of controversy in the booth, and I agree with you. I think if Koroshavin were to give Mikowski a little bit of a tap, even accidentally, there'd be the speculation. I mean, we saw it last week, and I was quite conservative last week, and I'm not going to be this week. I'll take a stance. But Sam Smeets taking a move, or defending actually, against the 185 of Rossi. So the rest of the Silver Group actually catching up to the back of the Porsche. Stokes as well, very, very close behind, in third place in class. And Smeets under a lot of pressure. Rossi, with that 5-second penalty, will be looking to overtake Smeets and pull that time ahead to be able to keep it. Obviously, that time will also be served at the stop that they will have to do. And by logic, you would pit halfway through the race, so in half an hour. So I'd imagine there's a lot of team discussion talking about how they're going to make up the time, trying to plan an overtake on the Porsche. It seems to be the cars behind do have the pace to make it happen, unless Smeets can hold them off. That is Alvarado making a move. That would be making a move onto Fisher and
watch behind him.
Rates as well on the inside, just making it work, going side by side. That McLaren taking the outside line, the Aston Martin the inside, and pushing Rates wide a little bit. But Alvarado goes wide, not enough to make anything happen. But again, pulling ahead. But the battle between Rates and Fisher heating up a little bit as well. Rates having the inside line. Two completely different classes. Fisher not really having anything to fight for or prove at this point in time. Don't want to lose the time out to Stokes up ahead, and Fisher will be looking to make the time up, so to speak. And try to catch up with their group, because that is where Fisher's points are. Fisher's points are with Stokes, Rossi, and Smeets. So a lot of time to make up.
Fisher just doesn't want any more accidents at this point. They want a nice, clean run of it. I want to go back to the Smeets, Rossi, Stokes battle that they were going on with. They're all very close together. I wish people that did not understand or weren't into motorsport could get how complex that battle is. You've got the 95, who clearly doesn't have quite the pace as the 185 and the 166. And you got Rossi behind them, who has a 5-second penalty, who has the least to lose because they're already going to get penalized and dropped out of this battle anyway. So they'll likely be more aggressive on the 95. And then you have Stokes, who qualified on pole, dropped back to fourth, drove all the way to the back bumper of first place, went all the way back to third, several seconds, and now is caught up again and is actually cheering Rossi on, but in fact is actually going side by side with him here. He wants to get past both of these, and the 95 is just trying to drive as conservative as possible. That's what's happening with these three cars as they're going 160 miles an hour around this racetrack. I absolutely love it. If you don't like racing, then I don't want to have anything to do with you. Mikowski continues to defend down the inside, but more alongside is Koroshavin than he's ever been. But I wonder if it'll matter as he's trying to keep him pinned towards the apex and comes off of it just slightly, and that's all that it's going to take to get back out in front for Mikowski. But the strongest challenge so far by the 141, it almost worked. He was that close.
Yeah, I think at this point it is just a matter of time until that Bentley finds a way around. But looking in the background, that's Felix Ruppert getting close. That's Felix Ruppert seeing the scrap up ahead. They are losing time. And Melbourne, again, allowing Melbourne 15.7 seconds ahead just to run away with this race. So these guys are fighting really hard now, Jesse, which means that...
Oh, yeah, he's frustrated. Koroshavin now, again, very controlled driver, Koroshavin. I'm not sure he's going to do anything. I think a lot of the arguments is I'd rather deal with this on a pit stop than have to actually try to pass somebody. But he's a little frustrated right now. He's following him so close that if Mikowski has an accident, the 141 is going to be involved. And by the way, Felix Ruppert, because they've slowed each other up, Felix Ruppert's joined this battle for second as well.
So, minus the exception of first place running away, the battle for the podium is really starting to get a little bit interesting.
It's definitely on, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely turned on even more. If it couldn't any more than it already was. Koroshavin will be looking in the mirrors now, seeing that Ferrari and wanting a way around one way or another. And now Koroshavin having the inside line, not quite able to make anything of it. And it seems to it will be that again, not close enough to make a move into turn one. So there goes the half a lap race, half a lap wait to find the next opportunity, unless Mikowski makes a mistake. What I want to know, Jesse, is the state of that McLaren's tires, because I don't usually drive the McLaren, but from what I'm told, the tires are a key factor in how quickly it eats them. And the chat also making a point of that, saying that dipping the wheel onto the grass on the start-finish straight will give you a slow puncture if you do it enough times. So that's Ivan saying that. So
yeah, that's 100% correct. Yeah, that's ACC. That's what ACC does to your tires. But also to answer your point, Joshua, yeah, I've been told several times the McLaren likes to do two things: eat its tires and barbecue them at the same time. Neither which is conducive to good lap times.
I mean, it's preferable to have the rubber on the car and not burnt into the tarmac.
I tend to agree.
So, yeah. So as long as the rubber is staying on the wheels in that McLaren and the air decides to stay within the tire itself and not decide to break free into the atmosphere, I can foresee the McLaren keeping its pace, but at the same time that you can't deny the pace of the Bentley. And even Ruppert in the Ferrari has kind of found their legs a little bit. And it's definitely going to be the battle to watch as we see Rossi again challenging Smeet still for for first place in silver class, pulling into the
Oh, I
slipstream,
love this.
trying
I
to pull
love this so much.
onto the outside of turn one. Is it going to be enough? They do have the speed. They are slightly ahead, but the switch back in the line will mean that the Porsche is quicker on the
He's still
exit.
there. He's still there.
That's a slight tap. That was a slight touch, just a little push on the rear of the car. Very, very surprising that the Porsche didn't get sent round there, but I mean, let's see it there. Yeah, there's just a slight push, just a little help round, but.
Oh, Jake Boswell, excellent camera work to catch that. That was mega.
But that will establish a little bit of presence, I would imagine there, Jesse. If you're Smeets right now and you know that the car behind has just given you a little bit of a tap, but going down into the thing. Is this going to be it? Is this going to be the Bentley finding a way around a little bit of a door bang going down? But it seems to be that the Bentley will be pushed wide. That's absolutely amazing defending from the McLaren, but Rupert making a move as well, going into the second class corner, very, very close indeed. I don't think they're going to be able to jump up flat with the Bentley. The Bentley's got the inside line into the final corner. You don't see it overtake here very often, but Korshaven's made it stick. It's happened. Korshaven making the move round. That will be Mikowski taking a look on the inside, but maybe Rupert taking a look on the outside of turn one. But giving Mikowski's defending so far, I would be very surprised if Rupert can find the way around. He will not, but the 141 Bentley has found a way around finally after all of this time. Since pretty much the beginning of the race, an hour and 22 remaining, so we are almost 40 minutes into the race. That's 40 minutes of being stuck in traffic. And speaking of turn one, that is Rossi looking on the outside. I think a little bit of a touch again, same as last lap, but it will be that the Porsche will find a way around. But can they do it cleanly this time? No push this time. No contact, but again, Rossi finding a way around.
Oh no! They're back! They're both in the wall! Big crash! Stokes goes through to the lead, Smeets and Rossi into the wall! Oh no, and a bad rejoin! Alvarado involved, Rates involved, several cars. That certainly was not a good rejoin. Oh my goodness! Explosive action here. He was completely in the air, the 185.
That was huge, and you see the front end damage to the Aston right now, and that will be a total loss of front end downforce. You can see it having to slow right down. Watching that over again, it looked so clean, but again, the road just narrows. I thought they were clear, and just a tap on the rear. So basically, the Porsche returning the favor from the previous lap, but much, much harder this time around, and that was enough to send both cars around and into the path of, I believe, Alvarado, who also had a slight tap with the Aston as it was rejoining. So I don't believe it's cost Alvarado too much, but I'd imagine this front end damage to that already very aerodynamically sensitive McLaren.
I'm just going to say this, Stokes, if you're watching this back on VOD, go ahead and buy yourself a lottery ticket in whatever country you're from, because, son, you just won the lottery.
I mean, to not be tangled in that is...
That was absolutely horrible. Let's be completely fair. Smeets and Rossi getting together, that's never what you want to see, especially with heavy damage to all of those cars. Keep in mind there's a championship on that they're all involved in as well. But for Stokes, who has had just such an up and down day, to be just far enough away from that accident to be able to drive through it, it was absolutely amazing. And now, of course, Alvarado in the 7 for the second time today in the same corner has gotten damage from a car rejoining.
I mean, it's it's one of those races that kind of goes from bad to worse in a way, but handling it quite well. I mean, P14 at the moment, not the most ideal situation to be in, but that could have been so much worse. I mean, that could have been a full-on head-on contact with the Aston. It could have ruined the race even more than no one likes it, but could have been a whole lot worse is what I am trying to say. As you see, Rates trying to make their way up through the field again, taking advantage of the situation of the 95 going off. The 627 of Mikowski in third place, under pressure from Rupert this time. We've seen them under pressure from Korshaven, but under pressure from Rupert in the Ferrari. Again, it seems to be that the defending masterclass that we've seen so far is not slowing down anytime soon. That is Warmouth with the 50 penalty from earlier, down into P10. I believe they were further up the field earlier on, so I'm not sure if I've missed something or forgotten about something, but it seems to be they've fallen down the order at some point as well. Fisher in the 101,
Oh my
Aston
gosh!
making a move on
Fisher's insane!
Alvarado, and taking a look at things, Alvarado will stay ahead, but that will put them under pressure from Rates as well. Rates will not be wanting to make another mistake with that penalty as well, and it's quite frustrating when you are the faster car stuck behind slower cars, especially on a track like this. You were saying this earlier, Jesse. It's a frustrating experience. It's you just have to kind of wait for an opportunity, and they don't present themselves very often. That seemed that Alvarado's McLaren definitely with some front end damage there, definitely struggling. The 101 Aston keeping up, threatening a move at almost every turn, even when there is not a traditional opportunity, but it seems to be an opportunity has presented itself with the inside line, and will be squeezing in onto the curb that will give Alvarado the inside to this next corner. Can the Aston make anything happen on the outside? Maybe. It seems like it can turn sharp. It has got the front end grip, but Alvarado will squeeze them out onto the outside, keeping them behind, closing the door on any potential way of getting that Aston around the McLaren.
Well, let's reset really quickly, shall we, as they continue to fight for positions. By the way, this is third place in silver right now. That's Tobias Hopner in the Ghost Toblerone 197, and they've been running about fifth all day in class, and all of a sudden they find themselves on the high silver podium. Absolutely crazy stuff, as it would appear as if Garrett Fisher continues to try to get by the number 7 to no avail, and even contact there into turn 1. But let's reset. Chris Melbourne sat on the pole in the number 70 Bentley and has driven away. He has done a very good job at that. Koroshavin, who sat behind the 167 for a very long time, has gotten around Mikowski and now sits second. Mikowski is in third, but as you can see, he is not done defending. Luckily, he got some reps in with Koroshavin earlier, so he knows how to do it. But the 167 under fire from Felix Rupert in the 71 Ferrari for the final podium spot in Pro. And oh no! Alvarado visits the wall there. Was he dumped? Looks like he's clear. Was this just a mistake maybe? No, here comes the Aston in silver. Was there a touch here maybe? And
yes,
it would appear
yes,
so.
it looks like just a slight touch on the rear, and not heavy at all. It looks like the Aston just got a little bit too close and just helped it around, and I'd imagine the stewards will be looking into that one. It's a pretty not significant hit, but very significant impact with the not a significant hit from the Aston, but very significant into the wall. So it's not what you want. It's not what you want as either driver. You don't think any driver wants to send another driver around unless your name is Jesse Lee and you're behind another car. But
now that is slander, and I will not have that on my broadcast. I did not say that. I merely said that if you kept blocking me, I would tire of it and I would move you out of the way. I didn't say I'd wreck you, but I did say I would suggest you not be on the racing line anymore, which is completely legal as long as you're not racing in an FIA rulebook. Anyway, moving on. Like I was saying, Chris Melbourne leads this race by about 19 seconds. By the way, that gap is coming down slightly to the 141. Pay attention to the final hour and 15 minutes. See if what Koroshavin could possibly do. Felix Rupert has gotten around Mikowski for the third place position. So it's two Bentleys and a Ferrari on the podium. Mikowski fourth. Crozen, that's Minnow Crozen, by the way, in the 782. That's holding on to fifth place, though he might be fourth by the time pit stops roll around. He's not too far behind Mikowski, that is continuing to struggle in that McLaren. We reckon it has something to do with the tires. That usually is with McLaren. And in the silver battle, Stokes, who was on pole, went back to fourth, went all the way to second, went back to third, is now leading the race again after a massive crash between the 95 and I believe that was the 185 at the time. That car has made their pit stop, and Strapa has been installed into the 185. But we're hearing that they're shocking, I know, might be a penalty coming between the 95 and the 185 for that incident. But anyway, Fisher, who was running a very distant fourth in high silver, is now second, and Tobias Hopner, who was an even more distant fifth, is now on the third step of the podium. That's why you run the races right there, Joshua, because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about predictions at the start and how difficult that is, and I mean, well, this this goes to prove it. Obviously, Mikowski again under pressure. That McLaren seems to have hit a reverse gear. I have a bit of news for Mikowski that the R gear doesn't in fact mean race, and they should probably put it going forward, because again, cruising in the Bentley, and the 782 Bentley catching up only 0.6 off the back of the 720. So I think, Jesse, you might be right. I think that the tires on the 720 are starting to struggle almost an hour into the race, 3/4 of an hour in even. Martin Larenc under pressure from the 27 Bentley. It seems, again, that the Bentleys just have the pace going very, very hot into the heaven. You see the difference in closing speed there. And again, just on the run up, then down the hill. I mean, what are we going to see? You see the Bentley takes so much of that inside curve. It's just unaffected by it. And it doesn't, the other cars on the grid don't look to be able to make anywhere near the use of the full use of the track. And again, just a little bit onto the inside there, but yeah, the other thing about the Bentley, Jesse, is, from what I've also been told from people who are far better at the game than I am, that the Bentley has the opposite problem to the McLaren, in that it's actually pretty good on the tires. So might we see longer stints from the guys in the Bentleys, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen. I mean, well, it can't be too much longer, because they've only got 67 minutes. I reckon if anybody's going to do that, though, that would be the Bentleys that would come in, especially the ones up front. Their pace is pretty excellent, and they've not really had any dramas. Melbourne certainly has just been off by themselves, and Korshaven, even coming through the podium positions to where they are, they did that so cleanly that there's no reason to come in early. I mean, you got Melbourne, who's killing it, Korshaven, who's made a lot of great decisions in this race. Keep them in there for the full 67 minutes if you can, and get the most out of them, and then install that fresh driver with even less time on the clock, and tell them, just don't mess it up.
Yeah, I mean, the 70 still has to change driver. Melbourne's doing an amazing job, let's face it. I mean, out in front, 20 was that on the timing sheet, that was 20 seconds ahead. We will get an update on that as the 141 and the 70 cross the timing lines. But I believe that was 15, 20 seconds ahead, so fairly significant. I mean, you still have the driver swap to go, 19.998 seconds between Korshaven and Melbourne. It's still over an hour to go. We're not at the halfway point of the race just yet, and I would imagine there would be potentially a chance for the 141 to close that gap a little. We'd need to keep an eye on the lap times. Looking at the best laps, though, Korshaven's best lap is 0.4 off of Melbourne, so it doesn't seem to be that they are catching at all. Last lap for Melbourne was a 135.4 and a 135.8 for Korshaven, so it would appear that Melbourne is actually pulling ahead even more, despite Korshaven having clean air.
Well, we are, of course, watching the chat, and very quickly before pit stops do kick off at some point in the future, just want to say thank you all for spending a little part of your Friday night with us here on RCI TV. We definitely appreciate that, and we invite you to like, subscribe, hit the bell for more GT racing content. Myself and Ryan Mawson will be with you tomorrow evening for some more Night Owl action. Get your jammies on, pop some popcorn. You're going to want to be here for that, and the continuation of the Monday Lambo Championship on Monday as well. We've got racing back most days of the week for you this fall. We'd love to have you. So why not like, subscribe, join us, and enjoy racing with us. And a big thank you to all of our partners that make this race and every race we do here possible. Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP. Get 25% off your driver coaching at Driver 61 by using our discount code. Discount code is in the description. And also, you can use our Fanatec referral code, also linked in the description. Doesn't cost you anything. And of course, it helps us, of course, pay for server costs, etc., and so forth. Keep the lights on and the booth nice and warm. It will be very cold in here in the winter time. We do appreciate that. And just reading some of the chat messages, Mikhail Sundstrom chimed in about the earlier context. Like, well, we can't have the stewards go idle, can we? Very funny, very cheeky there, Sundstrom. I like that. A couple of you commenting on the contact. I love to see it. I love to see it. Ivan says it's Friday, keep her lit. Well, the drivers are definitely turning the wick up, that's for sure.
Oh.
Ivan making...
Oh, sorry, looking at the replay there, that was the 197 Bentley getting a little bit loose. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Jesse, but just a little bit of a moment for Hopner there.
Yeah, Hopner doesn't want that. Fisher has gotten by them for the second place position. What a return for Fisher. Had that off earlier in the race, very beginning of the race, in fact, in that 101, and now all the way back in second, new life. And for Hopner, though, just needs to keep it on the island. Their nearest rivals are about 8.5 seconds behind. You just got to keep it together and get to the pit stop, make adjustments that you need. I was going to say, they're making fun of me in chat for my preferred driving method. Ivan says, Jesse would politely hire a forklift and move them slightly out of the way, no crashing. Right you are, right you are. Actually, I would go down to their garage and just take all their spanners, and that way they couldn't work on the race car. Completely legal in America, by the way, to take their spanners and hide them for the weekend. Joe Gleason making fun of me, saying no, he would just hire a crane and have them move 1 meter to the left. That's preposterous, Joe Gleason. I would hire a crane and have them move 3.2 feet to the left. Do not be silly.
I mean, I am the sort of person that thinks Formula One would be more interesting if halfway through they sent Pastor Maldonado in a JCB, in a bulldozer, the incorrect way around the track at some point, just at any random interval. Make it fun, make it fan control. Have like a
Josh,
vote. When do you send Pastor?
Josh,
out?
to be fair, I wouldn't care what Pastor was in. He'd still crash into somebody. Alan Serafini Danesi in chat says, reporting for the 722 in silver, they retired for a power cut, and now we're crying watching what happened in front. I bet, guys. Alan, I guarantee you are. Can you imagine? I'm sorry for your luck, by the way. Power cuts, you just can't. I mean, there's nothing you can do. You guys may have noticed earlier, my mic cut out, and that was a cut of my own. And there's just nothing you can do about that. You're completely helpless, and it is the most helpless feeling in sim racing. Nothing your team did. You came prepared, but it's so gut wrenching watching all of your rivals struggle, and you can't do anything about it yourself. But best of luck to the 722, and sorry to hear about the power cut there.
Yeah, it's one of those reminders that sometimes in sim racing and in real life, you do get these malfunctions that do cause a retirement, and people sometimes think maybe sim racing is all plain sailing, but that's not always the case. And you guys seem to have like serious pace as well, so I'm actually really sorry to hear that. Fisher under pressure again by Hopner. Hopner wanting to make up for the mistake earlier on where the Bentley just got a little bit loose.
Oh, this
74
is...
of Wrights again, just squeezing out, but not able to get by. But Fisher, so Hopner will, the 197 Bentley will find a way around the 101 Aston. And that will be a change in order for the podium of silver class. That will be Hopner promoted to the second step and Fisher on the third step, unless they can do something. But Jesse, this is where I was talking about strategies. 1 minute 4 left on the clock. There's only what, less than 10 minutes, or about 10 minutes left on the driver's stint. So in these final 10 minutes, you can start to play with the strategy a bit. You can try and over and undercut. And speaking of undercut, that is the 74 720S coming in of rates to will be for the driver swap, potentially fresh tires. I mean, we were talking about the 720 and how it the 720 and how it munches the front tires. Looking at the chat, Ivan, well spotted that. I think that just came up. P4 Mikowski with a 5-second time penalty. I'm not entirely certain what that is for, but we'll have to wait and see until we get the little slip of paper.
Yeah, well, indeed, we have that. I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. Warning for car 185 for avoidable contact with the 95. That was a second warning, so that is a 5-second penalty. Racing incident for minor contact between the 627 and the 141. No further action for minor contact between the 74 and the 7. 15-second penalty for car 95 for avoidable contact with the 185. 15-second penalty for the 185 for extremely poor rejoin. They actually wrote that, by the way. Extremely poor rejoin by the 185 and crashing or causing contact with two cars. No further action for a incident involving the 74 and the 7. They had no time to react to the incident ahead. No harm, no foul. Inconsequential contact, no further action between the 197 and the 74. 5-second penalty for car 7, missing his braking point and causing contact with the 101. 5-second penalty for car 627 for braking too late, running wide into the 71. 15-second penalty for car 101, taking out the 7, position not returned. No further action, minor contact between the 197 and the 101. Racing incident between the 627 and the 71. Warning for car 71 for dive bomb with contact on the 627. Racing incident between the 100 and the 185. No further action between the 100 and the 102. Well, the stewards certainly got busy. And this is going to show us potentially one of the Mikowski, certainly one of the Mikowski position taken with contact there. And you can see the flashing lights of Rupert, who was a little upset by that. This is a subsequent lap, probably the very next lap. Contact there. Oh, just sends it in there. And, well, that if you're wondering why the 71 and the 627 showed up on that list a lot, that's why.
So that would explain that penalty. But Rupert getting by Koroshavin. Koroshavin in the pits. So strategy seeming to be coming into play. Coming in. The 782 Bentley trying to find a way around. I believe that is right. Hold up. 782. Is that blue flag traffic I see there? Because according to the timesheet, that is. Oh wait, no, it's Svenchek. So Svenchek at some point has gotten by Kreuzen, and Kreuzen needing to find a way through. I'm sorry, I apologize. It's hasn't updated the time on the timing sheet just yet, but yeah, no, coming down into the braking zone. This is potentially an overtaking opportunity, but right now there is no car advantage. It is Bentley on Bentley, and so it's going to come down to the drivers.
I'm furiously over here, folks, trying to do the maths and figure out if that was a good idea for the 141. Alapichik in that car now. I don't think the 141 was hurt by doing that. It's not going to matter either way. Even if it was a net loss, it's not going to be big enough to drop him, I don't think. But what I'm more interested in is that if that was an advantage to pit that early, and I reckon it might have been. We're going to have some more laps to prove that as more of the top 10 come in. The 627 in the pit lane and Svenchek in the 107 in as well, 4th and 5th respectively.
Again, I mean, the 141 making that move so early on. I mean, you know, it takes guts to be the first one to pull into the pits and to be sure that it is the right decision. Steve Hughes, I mean, a huge train of cars ahead that already have made their stops. Harry Conway in the 72. So Very, very quick driver in the 72 Porsche. Again, looks like underlapped traffic with the NSX. The NSX is Solberg and P21, so that will be a blue flag moment. Looking on the inside, will get by, and rightly so. They do have the right of way once they get so far alongside. The NSX wouldn't be allowed to block, but that will allow Conway to start chasing down the 27. And then from there on, there is Fisher and Hopner running second and third in the silver class. Fisher obviously with the 15-second penalty. But speaking of silver class, that is Stokes all the way up into P6, running first in silver. Still yet to stop, but that might be a thing. Melbourne in the pits as well. So our race leader is stopping currently, as is Kreuzen. That will potentially inherit Rupert the race lead for the time being. So going long for the overcut. As we're seeing Lorenk under pressure from Jarzabowski in the 501 Ferrari. And no, it's just, again, Zandvoort really proving, we've said it a million times, Jesse, just how difficult it is to get around on this track.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure can be. I was just, again, doing more maths. I'm trying to figure out who's going to be leading the championship next week. And obviously the 73, that McLaren, not in this race. So they're going to lose the championship lead, the 73 team. And I was trying to figure out because the 70, who has come in, by the way, the leader has come in, Felix Rupert leading the race, and Garrett Fisher has once again missed a corner there. This time it was turn 1. Was that in self-defense? I almost wonder. Not wanting to turn in, but Dimitrov installed into the car that's led every lap so far, the number 70. Felix Rupert out front now, though, and still has to pit with Martin Lawrence and Jarzabowski in So Pitchick now back in what will be second place. We'll pay very close attention to that gap. It was around 19-20 seconds before the stop. Pitchick came out of pit road many laps ago, and in fact, no, the gap has only grown in that time. So a net loss on the stop for the 141, but again, not the biggest deal. It would be very difficult for anybody to keep up with the 70 today. So the 70 is not in the immediate fight for the championship. They're in the mix, and they certainly will be after today's performance if they can bring this home. But I was trying to figure out who's going to be leading the championship. But is it the 141, the 70? Is it the 71? I think the 141 is going to be leading the championship over the 71, and the 70 is going to close right in on them. And I think the 73 might drop all the way down from the lead to fourth place in that championship. That's just my rough maths, but pretty confident in that. Week after week, Joshua, they just continue to not agree who the dominant car is. They're just not a dominant car.
I think it is very, very, very track dependent, as we were saying before. I think that's why we've seen such a mix in results when it comes to, was that a tap? I think we just saw the Bentley give the Aston a little bit of a love tap going down into the hairpin. Nothing coming of it, but it was definitely worth coming away from the train of thought for. Still going side by side, going up the hill. The Bentley making it through, and I don't know if that was on merit or whether that was Fisher just allowing the Bentley around. However, it does also appear that Fisher is still yet to stop and take that penalty, and going a little bit wide. That will allow, that is the 95 Porsche means through, but again, has the 95 stopped? I believe it has, so that's Scheckerman in the car right now. So I'm not sure if they've made up a load of space and if the timing sheet hasn't updated, but seems to be that there's a little bit of a struggle there and a little bit of
Dusan Slizik getting as close as you like, bumper to bumper with the Bentley. What effectively is going to happen here? I'm confident in saying this. We're probably going to go. Oh, that was contact. Tobias Hobner gets spun by Dusan Slizik on the straightaway coming out of the corner there.
We'll be seeing a bit of a replay of that coming out of the final turn. And yeah, no, I look away for just a moment, then look back and I see,
I think he
yeah,
was coming to pit road.
yeah, I was just about to say that. It looked like he was just slowing up just a little to try and eye out where to pit. And no, that was just enough to send them round. And
No, Josh, how are the
ooh.
stewards how are they gonna call that? He was slowing up to come to pit road. They're not gonna give Slizik a penalty for a car slowing up to come to pit road, right? They wouldn't do that. You do have to slow up for pit lane here. It is a very narrow and sudden right turn. He was a little bit to the right, but that's a rare one, and I'm curious how the stewards are going to rank that, because I don't think you can give Slizik a penalty for that. It wasn't his fault.
It's a weird one in that slowing down so early on is, I mean, it was a very early time to slow down. Like
That's the other side of it, yeah.
In a corner that is usually flat. So, on one hand, maybe the Bentley was, maybe Hopner was just a little bit unpredictable, and maybe should have tried to brake a little bit later or move off of line after the first turn. But on the same hand, maybe Svenchek, should have left a bit more of a gap to react to Hopner slowing down. I mean, you could judge this either way, and I suppose it's one reason, Jesse, why me and you aren't in the stewarding booth right now, and that job is for multiple sets of eyes to take all of this into account. I'm genuinely curious as to what they are going to say. It doesn't look like it affected Hopner too badly. Hopner with a stop go 30 though, so was that speeding in pit lane?
Yeah, that was speeding in pit lane. If I had to guess, after the spin, Hopner was a little frazzled, and Tobias was in second gear, maybe trying to hit the limiter. And if you're not familiar with ACC, the pit lane speed limiter only works in first gear in any of the cars. So if you switch to second, you're going to be going full speed again. So if I had to guess, that's what happened. Apparently, if you're in a GT4 BMW, that is not the case. But for every other car, that I actually didn't know that. Our broadcaster Jake the Bosmeister Boswell bringing that up. I've never even noticed. And it's so weird. I'm so used to other sims where no matter what gear you're in, the limiter engages. I am guilty of stop go 30s myself in some of my maiden events of not getting it into the first gear because it wasn't compulsory. But apparently the BMW GT4 car, that does not apply, but pretty sure it does for a Bentley. But yeah, I'm curious how they're going to deal with that in the steward's box, because that almost never happens. We've had crashes in pit lane, and that's always obvious, but that's not what that was. That was a car trying to get to a narrow pit lane. You can see it there, just jutting out, and Hopner was in the middle of the track. It wasn't like they were blocking the left lane slowing down. They might, if my experience in the box, in the steward's box, is worth anything, I reckon they might let that go based on the fact that it's sort of a racing incident. We will certainly have to see. By the way, Felix Rupert has come down pit lane, and the 71 is down and gone with a new driver now into third place. So order restored. Dimitrov, Pitchik, and 71, your top three. Dusan Slizik is in fourth place, and Darren Maholland in the 782 is your top five. The 627 of Grabus in sixth place. Bart Macha in the 404 AMG. Geisler in the 837 and 27 Bentley, who we ride on board with here, looking at Geisler, and Sizek in the 501. That's your top 10. Ware leads in high silver in the 166. What a race, what a win it would be for those guys. It would be a very memorable one as it gets really close here. Oh, and it's a touch! It's a touch and a spin, and he's going to drive away, and I don't think that's the smart move right there.
No, I don't think the stewards are going to look very fondly on that at all. We see a replay. It seems to be that the 27 goes a little bit wide, maybe loses the back end, almost a tap, but then is a tap on the 837, sending it around. And at this point in time, this would have been time for the 27 to pull to the side of the track to allow the 837 to recover. But obviously Mulholland appears to have just carried on with their day, so the stewards will be taking that into account. And the stewards will be taking that into account, and that will go against them. Wolf Motorsport in the chat with a really, really good point. The 100 Porsche potentially going past the driver stint timer. Kate Heath from the 100 still yet to pit. So I think we saw a situation last week, Jesse, where I believe it was one team. I think it might be in the Ren Ralton team. I might be mistaken. Didn't have a driver to swap to on that particular day, so took a penalty at the end. I wonder if the 100 Porsche is in a similar situation.
Yeah, first of all, you're right, Wolf Motorsports, they have now gone past that. I don't know if you get disqualified at the end of the race. I think you do get disqualified if you have a drive time limit violation. I'm not sure what that's set to. I know the stint timer is 67 minutes, and the two things are different. Each driver has a maximum amount of time they can drive, and then there's also a stint limiter. So I'm not sure how they've done that in this particular championship. Going over the stint limit gives you some sort of time penalty, I'm pretty sure. Going over the drive time limit disqualifies you, I'm pretty sure. So I think that's how that works. By the way, I've got to say this, Wolf Motorsports knocking it out of the park here. I just got to mention this. Being wrecked into the pit lane like Hopner was, Joshua, would you call that a pit maneuver?
You've broken me, Jesse.
I didn't do it. The chat did that. I didn't make that joke. By the way, we're watching a replay of contact there as well through all of this. Oh, my goodness. Ivan also has jokes, as it turns out. It's not a BMW. They have indicators. Oh, dear.
The chat being very punny tonight, and that was a terrible one. I
like it. You know what, chat? You be you. And I appreciate you for you.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, the broadcasts wouldn't be the same without you guys, and since, you know, I've been around a little bit now, and I see the same name. It's like the drivers, you know, you see names pop up every now and again, you know, you recognize the names on the drivers, but seeing the names of people pop up in chat is just as amazing as well. You know, you guys, you know, showing so much love for what we do, and it's honestly, it's amazing. It really is.
It really is. I can't say it enough, that to have those familiar names in there, and they come in and you all play along with us, and you have fun with us, and that's what makes it fun for us, and we definitely do appreciate that. And well, we have a couple of verdicts. 5-second penalty for car 102, actively blocking the leader under blue flags on multiple occasions. You don't see that almost ever in RCI. That's actually more rare than disqualifications, I think. So the 102 ignoring blue flags, essentially, and blocking the leader. And we do have a steward ruling on the incident that we've been talking about the past 10 minutes. 15-second penalty for car 107 for taking out the 197. The stewards have decided that they're not convinced that he was coming to pit lane. Therefore, they are ruling it a dump. They're ruling that the 197 got dumped because he was on older tires, and the 107 shouldn't have turned him. Now, that's very interesting there, as the stewards, of course, they have the benefit of infinite replay in different angles. They will have known exactly what the car was doing at the time, so they deem that a 15-second penalty. Thoughts on that?
I mean, it's certainly significant, however, kind of understandable. Obviously, as you say, they have infinite replays, they can watch it over and over, a lot, you know, they can watch it so much more than we can. And they have access to all of the inputs, the throttle traces, the brake traces, and I trust their judgment. I know I said I'd cause controversy in the chat this time around if anything even remotely like this happened, but I don't think I can. I think I kind of agree with them.
Yeah, I mean, as always, I'm going to defer to them. They clearly saw something that indicated to them that Hopner was not trying to make for pit lane, and they just got spun out of the middle lane there. And that was another point that we were talking about, is he was in the middle of the track. There's no need to be that close to him. So that's where the stewards went, and that's the penalty. And I'm sure the 107 group disagrees with that wholeheartedly. And I'd be curious to see what they have to say about that. Ivan in chat says, "I'd like to be one of the names on the left, but I'm such a bad driver. I'm right here." Uh, well, don't first of all have some confidence in yourself, Ivan, and number two, doesn't matter if you're a pro or not. We have splits for you where even if you are not as proficient as you wish you were, you can learn and gain experience, and one day you will be on the list. And we've had several drivers go down that route, a couple of which are in this race right now, in fact, that have climbed the ranks. And if they can do it, you can do it. And that's my motivational speech for the day.
I mean, motivation with Jesse. I mean, it always gets me going. You know, it always gives me the chance and the hope to keep carrying on with things when things start looking a bit bleak. So, again, shout out to Jesse. You know.
Well, here is the state of things. The 15-second penalty for turning Hopner for the 107 has basically alleviated this battle for the moment. Now, I would be careful for the 71. You don't want Slizik to get too far out in front. Keep in mind, if Slizik gets 15 seconds ahead here in the final 45 minutes, that penalty doesn't matter at the flag. And we had a conversation earlier about what they may be doing on the pit stop. It's almost certain that you take tires. Nobody wants to be out here on 2-hour-old tires. So almost everybody would have done that, as well as changed the driver. We know that the 100 hasn't been to pit road. Actually, I take that back. The 100 was on pit road. They were on pit road within the first 10 to 15 minutes. So they probably still have a stop outstanding, and they're probably not in violation of the stint timer. You can have the same driver in the car. You just have to change the driver once to validate your pit stop. But considering they were involved with that early accident, they came down pit road really early into the race. That messed up their stint timer. They might not be in violation of that, and they might still make their stop and be completely legal, now that I think about it. As Slizik, by the way, completely taking it to the 71, nearly getting by him, but the defensive line for the 71 works in their favor.
Yeah, there is a bit of a cluster of cars going on at this point, including all the way back to the 627 of Garbus, which was, again, the 627 was holding off on the podium for such a long time. And that was that the tap there from the Bentley, looking on the rear view of the 71 Ferrari, making a move onto the inside of turn 1. It compromises the Ferrari a little bit. That will allow the 782 a potential chance to get by. Be very careful not to hit that inside curb, squeezing the Ferrari out. The Ferrari will rejoin, narrowly missing the 627 McLaren, going side by side up the hill. Obviously, going side by side up the hill, the McLaren getting by as well. I can't imagine the Ferrari will be happy about that. It seems to be that they just got squeezed a little too hard going into turn 3 there.
Adrian Schutzara is going to, I can't imagine, they're going to be fuming under that helmet now. Because not only now is Slizik in third, they've already got the head start on beating that 15-second penalty that they had. That was a very frustrating sequence of corners for the driver of the 71.
Yeah, not really an awful lot they could do. It seemed to be they maybe had a slight bit of contact on the start-finish straight by the Bentley trying to overtake it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, if there was, I suppose the stewards will be looking into it, but it seemed to be just upsetting the car into the braking zone, which allowed the Bentley to take the inside line and get by. Pretty much exactly what you were saying, Jesse, just moving a car onto the outside, or just off the racing line a little bit, if that's the case, and taking full advantage of the situation. Currently was watching the 501 Ferrari, the Fordzilla, it was at the Fordzilla eSports team, holding off Harry Conway in the 72 Porsche. Again, of a lot of the drivers we see, that's not a name you want behind you, because they typically don't stay behind for very long.
Well, I was wondering why Geisler was back in 11th place, and, well, the stewards answered that for me. 15-second penalty for car 27 for taking out the 837, position not given back. That explains that.
Yeah, that's a quite a significant change. So, that's like, as you said, experts like Guy says, chop
Oh,
down the order after
Slezak!
541, just rejoining the track just
Oh,
about safely, just narrowly missing Conway. Or watch that again, just misses the apex, runs wide, and if you run wide, you lose the braking almost. And slowing down on the grass is
I,
not advisable, really.
I'm gonna tell you a secret. Harry Conway would have done a poo right about then. That was as close as you could. Harry, if you have us on in the background, you almost died, cuz.
I'm not saying anything for fear of having my legs broken. But no, a very, very a change of Nomex needed at that point in time.
That I just watched that back on repeat on the stream. That was very close stuff right there. As the lights flashing, Grzanka here in front. Is that Grzanka? That
No,
is
the
the
27 Bentley,
27.
yes, the
So
27
up to
Bentley. Almost
up to
like,
8th place.
yeah, I dare say the Bentley letting Conway by. Obviously, the Grzanka having the 15-second time penalty, so seems like maybe thought there was no real point in fighting the Porsche and losing even more time. Wolf Motorsport in the chat with brown flag, and that's the definition of one if I ever saw it.
Oh, I'm a fan of our chat. I love our chat. Our chat's awesome.
Ah, chat's
Looks
the best
like
chat.
Grzanka in the 27 in the pit lane. This is an unscheduled stop. I reckon they either think they have to serve that penalty before the end, or they want to make an adjustment or change. Well, we might know if they change driver. That would explain it. But they are definitely in unscheduled right now. This is Vanko Dimitrov. If you haven't seen the Volante Racing Bentley number 70, well, that's because they're so far out in front. They're not battling anybody. They've got clear running in front of them and behind them. It's been just about a perfect day for the number 70 Bentley. They have a 19-second lead over Pitchick. By the way, that gap was 22 seconds about 15 minutes ago, and now it's only 19 and a half. So Ala Pitchick is gaining, but by my maths, not quite enough to get there. So clean sailing for the 70, and as pointed out in the chat, it is a 1-2-3-4 for Bentley. They certainly didn't start the day like that, but looking that way, as Slizak only has a 1-second advantage on Darren Mulholland. But either way, it is a Bentley top 4 lockout. But as it would stand right now, Slizak would fall all the way to right about 7th or 8th. If Harry Conway continues to march, he actually might move Slizak all the way down to 8th or 9th. So Slizak needs to get a move on here. But for Vanko Dimitrov, it has just been that whole team. They came out with a plan, they executed it, and all these running off tracks that they've been doing isn't giving them punctures, it doesn't look like.
No, it seems to be that those guys are handling the tires quite well. In fact, you see Dimitrov not using all of that curb. Apparently, from what I've been told, that curb is the curb that will do it. The left-hand side of the car will start losing pressure if you keep running wide at that point on the track. So just, keeping it calm, no real reason to push, and maybe that is the reason why Dimitrov's last lap was a 135.9 compared to Pitchick's 135.5, so half a second difference between the two cars. And if this keeps, a 19-second gap is a very, very nice amount of breathing space, but half an hour left to go, 35 minutes. If the gap becomes half a second each lap, obviously that's kind of unrealistic. Let's face it, that gap will fluctuate. Is there a chance Pitchick could catch up to Dimitrov?
There is, but he's not catching near quick enough. You'd need about 75 minutes to catch up at this rate, and the problem is it's fluctuating, so you take that into account as well. It's called a fudge factor, for those of you that don't routinely do math a lot. Yeah, he's just going to run out of time. He may get within about 12 seconds if he keeps this up, but that'll be just about it. There's just 35 minutes left in the race. 8:51 p.m. We didn't talk about the weather at all in this race. It's been completely sunny, lovely optimum track, 16 degrees C, if not just a tad chillier than they would have liked to have it. But other than that, it has been a picture perfect day here at Zandvoort for a race. And what a race that we have been treated with. Well, the 185 has not been treated to anything but walls today, as the damage on that car is obvious, though we're not sure if that damage is actually there or just what we see. Sometimes when they go to pit lane and they fix that, it doesn't fix for us. I would hazard a guess by the fact that Solberg is really running them up, that there is some sort of damage on the 185.
Yeah, it seems that way, and it seems to be that the NSX being a little bit held up. As we see, that is the 627 McLaren going very, very wide on the exit of the final corner, going down into turn one. They will lose the run on the Bentley of Mulholland going down. We've seen so many passes happen into turn one. It seems to, well, it will be that the turn one is the most popular overtaking spot on the track, and we've seen what happens when an overtake goes wrong at various other points. So 627 making up for the time. The lead McLaren, the lead car that's not a Bentley, as has been pointed out previously, going down the hill. Again, just seems to be that the McLaren, its strength lies in maybe the slow speed corners and in getting out of them, in initial acceleration out of corners, because from what I've experienced, the Bentley does like to bog down a little, and that is the difference, especially coming out of this corner here. Second gear in the Bentley, I believe, and also in the McLaren, and it doesn't seem to be, looking at the gap, doesn't seem to be that the McLaren is making the time up.
Yeah, that gap has come down to that point, but like I said, it has stabilized a little bit. It was actually a bit lower than that. Maybe Dimitrov stepped on the gas a little bit. Maybe Pitchik gave up a little bit. Don't know. And of course, they also could be running to a fuel number, though that probably isn't the case for these Bentleys. They tend to go longer than anybody else, and an hour, even 60, 70 minutes is doable in these cars quite easily, I was told. So unlikely that I'm keeping a track on the 107 and how much time they're ahead of the cars behind. Rather unfortunately, the answer is not enough. And I was also looking at Conway, who confidently passed the 501 earlier. And they're 5.2 behind Bart Macha. Love to see those two race against each other.
Yeah, two very good drivers, very good racecraft. You see them quite often very, very close together, and they're very respectful of each other, and it's what you want to see. But yeah, the 627, 720 just catching up a bit more, closing the gap, trying to find a way around. Again, Zandvoort, we've said 1,000 times over, it's not the easiest track to do that on, and it seems to be that we see these battles, and and it is kind of same old in a way. It's car follows another car and tries to find a way around, and now that strategies have played themselves through, the teams now have to kind of accept whatever decision they've made for strategy is now into effect, and now have to have full faith in the decisions that have been made. Mulholland still fighting off the 720, and it seems to be that the 720, looking at the lap times, is actually almost half a second faster on that last lap.
Well, the McLarens fell off. It was almost universal that the McLarens fell off in the first hour. I'm curious if that's going to happen here, because right now Garbus is all over. Oh, completely wide there was Darren Mulholland, and he might get overtaken here. Maybe contact between the two of them as Garbus goes through, trying to thread the needle. More contact there as the pass gets done, but looking down the inside as Mulholland can't quite do it. And that's going to be a pass for Garbus, the 627 back in to the 4th place position. This is the most lively we've seen a McLaren in the last hour. Good pass.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, it's, well, from the start of the race, we saw the 627 go defensive, but it's, looking at it, now on the attack, that may actually promote them to the 3rd step on the podium of chasing down the 107 with the time penalty. Looking at lap times, I think that's where, looking at the maths, lap time wise, Slizik is a little bit faster per lap by a few tenths, but I don't know that a few tenths is not going to be enough to pull enough of a gap to keep that 3rd place spot. So it's a case of watch this space, I think.
Yeah, I mean, what is Garbus going to do? Is they're going to go up there and challenge Slizik? That's also a possibility, but even if they don't right now, you had to think about that pass on Mulholland as the pass for 3rd. Of course, the drivers and the teams can see the penalties just like we can. They know who, not only do the teams that have penalties know they have penalties, everybody else knows they have penalties as well. So Garbus and the Carbon SimSport team will know that they're technically 3rd place here, and all they got to do is hang on. So that battle for Mulholland may have been for 4th, but it's actually for the 3rd place position. And I am pleased to announce that Harry Conway is catching Bart Motches, so we might see a AMG versus Porsche battle before this race is all done.
That'll be amazing to see. I mean, as you were saying earlier, 2 drivers that are able to go wheel to wheel and do it very, very well indeed. Ryan Ware chasing down Geisler. The 166 Bentley in the lead of Silver Class by a huge margin. 3 pro cars separating them from the 101 Aston, which, again, we've seen go through the walls throughout the course of this race. So to still be in P2 of Silver is quite a feat, to be completely honest. And number 100, as has been pointed out, has not done a driver change, therefore does still have the mandatory stop, and therefore will not be holding on to 3rd place, promoting the 95 Porsche, which we saw previously leading the class. I mean, to be fair, the leader of Silver Class has changed more than most people change their underwear. And
hey,
well, you change your underwear every day, and the leader of Silver has changed more than once throughout the course of this race. So that will promote the 95 Porsche to 3rd place onto the podium.
You got me there, and yeah, you're absolutely right. I reckon Heath is driving by themselves at this point. Otherwise, they would have changed driver at some point. So they did make that early pit stop, and due to a incident, but they've gone past that now. They're definitely past 67 minutes since that stop occurred. So I'm willing to believe now that they are driving solo and that they are going to just finish out the race here, and without doing the mandatory stop. Completely sideways with Darren Mulholland. Lets you know what they're dealing with in the 782 camp. That car not gripping to the track at all. I saw the number on the side of that car, and I was looking at the back of the car, so that's not good. I don't remember who said this, but you can tell if a car is loose if you can read the sponsor on the side of it while looking straight at it. So that's not so eloquent way of saying she's loose, son. But Darren Mulholland certainly is that. The 100 likely not getting to keep that position, and the 95 is Scheckerman. It'll be a small consolation prize to them, considering how unceremoniously deposed they were at the sort of almost near the beginning of this race. In fact, it feels so long ago that incident happened. But very frustrating for them, and maybe a little bit of solace at the end of the day, finishing on the podium. Mike Williams joined us in chat, says, shame for us, Valentine forgot to put me back on the team this week. and that was us GG'd. And that is an absolute shame. You hate to see that. I know a lot of you guys and gals are racing a lot, and it is hard to keep up with all the different signups, all the different things that you have to do to just get to this. It's not as simple for those of you that don't actually race in this capacity. It's not as simple as just jumping into the car and racing. It's not pub racing. There is a lot of setup that the teams have to do. There's a lot of scheduling. And of course, if you're alternating and working on drivers and swapping them out, then in RCI's case, you can do that for championships like this. And you must do that. Otherwise, you won't be able to gain entry to the race. So that's very unfortunate. We look forward to seeing you back on the grid once Valentine decides that you exist, Mike.
It's never a fun experience when your when your teammates forget that you're a living entity and and that you are on in the living realm of existence. Not strangely philosophical and strangely deep for an RCI stream, but just bringing you all the content. Harry Conway within sight of Bart Mathieu now. You were saying earlier we might see a Porsche versus AMG battle, and that gap has shrunk to a 1.3 seconds. And yes, no, the 72 Porsche is indeed catching up to the back of the 404 AMG. So by the time this race is out, I think we may see a wheel-to-wheel battle, so to speak. And but again, only 23 minutes left remaining. Is it going to be enough to find a way around?
I'll tell you what, if Harry Conway's in the car, it's absolutely going to be a wheel-to-wheel battle. He's not going to give him an option. That's Harry Conway. What I refer to Harry Conway as a tough but fair racer. He's intelligent, but he doesn't pass up opportunities, and that's what is awesome about watching Conway work. Bart Mathieu, by the way, the calculated thinking man's driver. And it will be interesting to see how they decide to play it. I wouldn't suspect Mathieu would just let it happen, even though he knows Harry Conway. I'm almost certain they would race each other pretty darn hard. Speaking of racing each other hard, AJ Jones for turn 1 silver, trying to fight off Heath here. And of course, Heath will not be able to keep this position, but this is still for second place in high silver. For a moment, let's just forget there's a amber number 1 beside Heath's name and just pretend this is for second place.
Yeah, I mean, catching up, but it's not going to happen if you keep going wide onto the grass. And a good sign.
Going wide, he was halfway to the beach.
It's a good sign that the 100 is keeping the car pinned in that final turn and not allowing any chance to lift. Right onto the back of the 101 again, able to make a move really into this corner. Again, it's too tight, the curb is too steep, especially when the Porsche can't really take advantage of it in the same way as some other cars such as the Aston and Bentley. How much of the car cutting a fair bit onto the inside, coming up the hill there on the run down the hill, coming into where the not the braking zones, the overtaking sections kind of are. That you can maybe squeeze a car through, but again the Porsche just losing the legs through this section. Very, very deep on the brakes, very deep on the diffuser of the Aston. See just the gap rise and fall, and I think this is sort of setting the tone a little bit. The Aston hitting the curb, going wide, that will allow the Porsche to get a little bit of an overspeed coming through. Is the Aston going to go defensive into the braking zone? I think it will. They're side by side, Aston on the inside line. And I don't know if the switchback will be a thing. The 100 car will get the better exit and the later apex, but not enough to capitalize.
Well, AJ Jones is going to be saying, why is he racing me so hard? He's not going to get to keep the position, but that's not the point. And we do allow them to race. So I think the smart decision for AJ here is just to let him go. If he's going to continue to drive that hard, I would genuinely, and I think he just did. I think he just did.
Yeah, a little bit of a tap, but not enough to send him round.
Oh, he's fighting back. He's fighting back on the outside, and he's going to get the position back. AJ Jones, was that given back to him by Kirk Heath, I wonder? or was that just on merit? I'm not sure. Either way, they reset to how they were. Second place still with AJ Jones on the 100 Turn 1 Silver team. 100 versus 101 for second in high silver. Good stuff. And by the way, Harry Conway is there on Bart Macha, and Bart Macha is almost there on Shazaria as well.
So this is going to be a three-way battle for overall P6, which will potentially be promoted to P5 once you take into account the 107's time penalty. So 5th place, only 2 steps off of the podium, and every team will want to maximize the amount of points that they take home from this event, especially when you've had sign-outs and you've had people not able to make this race for various reasons, which...
Oh, defensive!
Yeah, very defensive.
Shazara, very defensive. Bart Macha did the same thing. Shazara came all the way back across the track to block the other car. It's like it almost is a NASCAR race at this point.
Yeah, the high-speed pack racing going down into banked curves. I mean, for a brief moment in time, I forgot exactly where we are, Jesse. Breaking down into the hairpin again. Just the cars just so closely bunched up together, and it's a very similar situation to earlier when we saw with the 627 car. If one car makes a mistake, the other two will likely follow. Macha very late on the brakes coming down the hill, almost running into the back of the Ferrari, and that will lose out on time because of it running wide, and that will put the pressure on from Conway behind. Not quite able to make a thing move, but that's the 107 Bentley facing the wrong way.
Oh, and what's happened to Dusan Slizik? They were all by themselves last I saw. Actually, Garbus may have gotten back to them. I'm not sure. But either way, a spin as we go back to the battle for what is effectively 5th place. It will be 6 on the board, but it will be 5th by the time they get back there. Garbus, by the way, has gone back through. Dusan Slizik's all the way back to 5th. Darren Maholland up to 4th place now. And this battle, of course, still for the 5th place position. Looking to the inside, Harry Conway on Bart Macha. Can't quite get it done. And will be line of stern single file. And as they continue to argue over real estate, I will just mention there was a racing incident between the 782 and the 101. Minor avoidable contact deemed racing incident between the 782 and another car. No further action for the 27 and the 837. A rejoin from the 27 deemed acceptable, and the 837 was accommodating that rejoin. No further action for minor contact between the 782 and the 627.
So it seems to be fairly clean throughout everything that has kind of happened. And that's Macha making a move onto the Ferrari and making a move onto the inside, running the Ferrari slightly wide, but the Ferrari will have the inside line. But I don't know if it's going to count for anything. The 404 Mercedes pulling ahead a little bit, but not enough. The outside line, not the dominant line, and the Ferrari will get by, but that will put Conway side by side with Macha coming into the chicane. And I mean, fairly uneventful outcome of it. Conway thinks better of it, backs off, to try and avoid, because the space closes up. It doesn't look like it on the camera, but the space closes up so quickly when you're actually in the car, and it's not really the best place to send it. So again, we were talking earlier, these guys, they race really hard but fair, and that was a back out that, Conway could see coming from a mile away, but gives time to calculate. There's still 15 minutes of the race remaining, so time to kind of plan, where to maybe make a move, maybe, waiting for 2 cars ahead to make a mistake, or if one makes a mistake, will the second get kind of pulled into it, and just trying to take full advantage of the situation.
Well, this is a very delicate situation. They know they're probably, whoever wins this battle will likely end up 5th with the penalty of Slizik in front. So you got Shazaria in the 71 who leads Macha, who leads Conway. Oh, but for how long as they all come together in the back of the pack here? This is Kirk. He's still trying to get around Jones, and he still hasn't been able to do that. And rather unfortunately, Solberg has caught up, and is that the 95 of
It
Scheckerman? It
is.
is.
It is.
They're
It
all
is.
together here. This is all for a fight for second in silver. Meanwhile, this is the fight for 5th overall and in pro class as a pass is made. The 72 got around the 404 of Bart Macha, and this is how he did it.
He seems to be looking at it and analysing it a little bit. Matcha losing it a little bit on exit there, looks like, with a little touch of oversteer, and that pushes them wide going into the exit of that corner and letting Conway through and gifting him the position almost. But in terms of pace, we'll have to see, because Matcha was catching up to the Ferrari, but in turn losing to Conway. So with Conway held up by the Ferrari, the match is still in this. Conway can still make a mistake. The Ferrari can make a mistake. And that is, speaking of mistakes, that is the 100 Porsche braking a little too late, running onto the gravel and getting by the 101 Aston. And that will be promoting to second place in silver class. However, as to whether or not they'll keep it, I don't think will be the case, considering the penalty. However, now the 101 has to hold off the 102 and the 95 to hold on to that step on the podium in that class.
I will tell you, it's one of those things. AJ Jones will be asking, what is Heath playing at? Why is he racing me that hard for a position that he knows he's not going to keep? Why is he losing me all this time? But unfortunately, that's racing for you. Racing giveth and racing taketh, and unfortunately, that tooketh all of the lead that he had. He's down to third. He must know that he will still finish second, but the problem is Solberg and Scheckerman are right behind him, who also can finish in the second place spot. Meanwhile, Shadzariat still in the 6th place position, but Harry Conway now, the car behind him. Mikhail Sundstrom had a funny comment. The 404 Connection lost team in a red car. What is this? Yeah, I know, it is strange, isn't it, Mikhail? But they do continue around. Not to get lost in all this, we talked about the number 70 who has dominated the day. Don't take anything away from the 166 with Ware behind the wheel. They are likely going to win silver, high silver, and it will be a party. It's going to be a party down there for those guys, because that is a ridiculous comeback story. If we go back to 15 minutes in when they were 4th or 5th in class, I would have said there's no chance. But that and the near miss when the 2 leaders collided with each other, it has been a crazy, crazy race. If you've gotten to this point, here's a little Easter egg for you. If you've gotten to this point in the race, maybe you're watching this back on the VOD and you went to the end to see how it played out, don't be an idiot. Start from the front, watch this race. You're going to want to see it. Pop you some popcorn, and oh, by the way, if you've already noticed your favorite driver isn't on the board, oh boy, it's going to be a whole thing. This race was entertaining, and it will be from flag to flag, apparently, because these 3 are not going to quit. Mowing the grass, that's an expensive lawnmower. I didn't even know Mercedes made those.
I mean, apparently they do. That was a very, very wide line on exit, and putting Matcha right into the jaws of the 501 Ferrari. Catching up within a second now, making it a 4-car train. Matcha still clinging onto the back of Conway, who in turn is clinging onto the back of the 71 Ferrari and trying to find a way around with only 10 minutes left on the clock. Well, 11 if you want to be pedantic, but 10 minutes left on the clock, and not able to capitalize on the pace so far. But again, Zandvoort being Zandvoort. 10 minutes left. Again, we've seen how strong Conway can be, and if there is a small Porsche-sized gap left on the inside or indeed the outside of any corner, we'll be looking to put the car into it to find a way around. And I think at this point in time, the kind of racecraft mind games are kind of coming in, trying to take alternate lines, force the car in front to go defensive to try and create a gap that is needed to get the car around.
Bart Macha, not the most aggressive driver in the field. He doesn't want to wreck the 404 car. He just wants to get to the end, but he is going to wreck the 404 car. How is that possible? Commentators curse again. Bart Macha, what have you done to me? Completely off the racetrack. You have to wonder about the grip level of that car, because he went in fine and he just didn't turn anymore. It's like he was going too fast, or maybe didn't brake as intently as he meant to, and completely off the track, and that's going to drop him at least another position. Meanwhile, this still going on. This is the fight for second and silver, or at least it will be when the checkered flag comes out. Trulis Solberg and AJ Jones and that Scheckerman in the background. None of these drivers are willing to give an inch, and none of them are out of it. But what I was going to say about Bart Macha earlier is I didn't expect Bart Macha to fight Harry Conway too hard. And even when he did, I expected him to do it fairly, and he did do that. And, of course, Conway got through. And, by the way, Conway's in front of Shidzaria now.
So the Porsche has found a way around the Ferrari, and it looks like it might have been a turn 1 pass. But given Jesse's reaction, I'm not entirely convinced. It looks like it might have been going towards maybe on the exit of turn 1 or going into turn 2, which isn't usually an overtaking opportunity. But I mean, looking at on the replay now, I mean, doesn't look like we've found.
I wonder if he beat him into the chicane.
Yeah, no, that would make sense. That would make sense, because from the beginning.
I also
of the
wonder
replay,
how he did that, but
yeah, because I was saying earlier that chicane does close up quite a bit when you're actually in the car. And I mean, again, you want to talk about comeback drives. I mean, as far as the 166 obviously went through a lot at the start of the race, but so did the 72 Porsche. The 72 Porsche went from kind of where it is now to all the way to the back up to where it is now in 6th place. So Conway hustling that car as much as he needs to.
Well, Conway is an absolute weapon behind the wheel, and he certainly has been. That whole team, 72, put back early in this race, didn't let it deter them, drove up through the field. Conway gets in the car, and he has one job, and that's to get as many places as he can, and it's looking like a top 5. Actually, no, it's not looking like a top 5. He's 16 and a half seconds behind Slizik, and that will be 6th place. They held each other up long enough that Slizik in 5th place now has the overlap that penalty will not drop them out of the top 5. Meaning, speaking of dropping out of the top 5, whoever loses this battle might actually drop out of the top 5 in high silver. All 3 of these cars fighting for the 2nd place position. Meanwhile, Ware off on his own. But all of these guys, AJ Jones doing a good job. Oh my goodness! Nearly scraping the wall. Was that Scheckerman that nearly scraped the wall there?
That was, yes. That was the 95 Porsche in the white and pink livery, just keeping it absolutely pinned in the last corner and running
Josh,
very, very wide.
I take back my previous comment. He's not mowing the grass. He's trying to install the fence. That was. Oh my goodness.
Every now and again, the track has to undergo strict safety inspections, and sometimes, when you've got cars going so far wide, you need to make sure the barrier is up to snuff. And, well, there's the inspector right there.
We are being reminded by Tom Bryant that the 71 and the 72 are teammates, and it may have been orchestrated, that pass. And, I mean, there's nothing that says you can't orchestrate the pass. And that might have been the case, but even still, you got to give it to Conway. That Porsche just coming alive near the end of the race. Stewie, our broadcaster and web developer, would be very proud of what they've been able to accomplish in that Porsche, the highest one up in the field in 6th place. Ala Pitchik, by the way, has closed the gap down. It was nearly 16 seconds about 4 or 5 minutes ago. It's now 17 seconds again, but he was closing that gap down. But like I said nearly an hour ago, he is doing it. It's just not nearly quick enough. Riding on board Trulis Solberg, the sun becoming a problem in the final turn just a little bit as it's gone 9:21 in the evening here And Solberg looking to the inside defensive for Heath.
That
Oh,
was a
excuse me. That
touch.
was defensive for AJ, not Heath.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
very.
Heath is well up the order, well up in front here.
Yeah, that could have
But
been
yeah,
very messy. Big door bang.
very nearly had him though, but didn't in the end. And you got to wonder, does patience start to run out for Solberg? Does patience run out for Madre here, who's trying to
Oh,
get around the 199 or the
squeezed
199? And
against the pit
Schneider.
wall. Yeah, squeezed against the pit wall from the Porsche, just getting by. I'm not sure if that was an angry flash from the McLaren, or whether it was just the angle of the
Probably
car and the
wasn't
light chain,
probably
light
wasn't
shining.
friendly.
But no, I can't imagine it would be after that. That was a very Max Verstappen-esque move that we've seen there. Very aggressive squeezing, but again, left the McLaren enough space. So technically nothing wrong with it, but fighting a car that is not in your class is quite risky, because if you do make a mistake, or if they make a mistake and takes you out, especially. Actually, no, sorry, I'm getting mistaken. The 199 and the 74 are in the same class, so that was just really very, very hard fighting, and I can understand why the 199 would want to hold on to that position. Speaking of holding on to that position, you have AJ Jones still holding on to what will be promoted to P2 in class. Jones and Solberg both with a 5-second time penalty, which would
Oh,
potentially promote the 95 car to P2, but at this moment the NSX taking a look on the outside yet again. We saw a door bang last lap. Will it happen again? Yes, it will. And that will force the NSX wide, meaning that the pass cannot be done, but puts them right into the clutches of the 95. The track tightens up here, not an overtaking opportunity normally, and will not be on this occasion. The 102 doing the work all over again to catch up to the back of that Aston.
I just remembered something that I was told years ago, and that's nobody leaves Zolder happy. And I'm going to disagree. There's going to be a couple of teams that are going to be ecstatic about this result. Going to the inside, they're going to touch. It's going to be a crash. They're going to straighten themselves out. But the 95 is going to go through. Was that additional contact between the 95 and the 102? I reckon it might have been between Scheckerman and Solberg. We're going to get that on replay. That was a lot that happened. The Honda down to the inside. The 101 gets half spun, and not for lack of trying, saves it. The 101. How on earth did AJ save that car? And the 95 will squeak back through. How much damage did that do to the 101 and the 95? I don't think it matters at this point. Inside the final 3 minutes, and now the fight for second down to the 101 and 95. This is almost like Battle Royale racing.
It seems to be. I mean, 20 cars remaining. Can't quite remember how many we started with, but it was certainly a lot more than that. And I mean, the question I'm asking now, and hold up, I'll get back to that thought. This is the 501 Ferrari trying to make a move onto the 71, but goes wide and will lose out on the position to Matthew as well, who we also saw go wide earlier on, but managed to save it, but clawing back the positions, and is now back onto the rear end of the 71 Ferrari, and with only a minute and a half to make a move. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to find a way around.
Wolf Motorsports asks, is it getting clumsy or just desperate at the end? The answer is yes, Wolf. It is yes. It's both of those things, certainly. Final couple of penalties. No further action for I already read that. Warning for car 100 for dive bombing into turn 1, but position returned on the exit, so it was only a warning, but that is a second warning, so that's a 5-second penalty for car 100. No further action for a dive bomb, an additional dive bomb for car 100. That caused contact. No further action for minor contact between the 101 and the 166. A warning for car 101 for blue flag infringement. It is 5-second penalty due to it being a second warning. No further action for minor contact between the 102 and the 101. Look, the stewards are trying to let them race as much as they possibly can, and I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really neuter the sport too much. If we keep clamping down on too many things, then obviously, you don't want drivers to be too afraid to kind of go for a move. All we ask is, think it through. Make sure that it's for the most part a viable opportunity. Well, although mistakes do happen, and that is exactly why we have the stewards to kind of determine which of those mistakes are, punishable, and it's part of racing. End of the day, mistakes do happen, and it's kind of what it shakes it up. It makes it unpredictable, and that's what makes it such a spectator sport. Nobody wants to see it, but it definitely shakes the results up a little.
Speaking of shaking it up, Bart Macha is not done with Shadzara. Picking up where Bart left off. Where were we about 15 minutes ago? That's right, trying to get around the 71. Oh boy, Zandvoort. Excuse me. Zandvoort is frustrating in this way, is what I'm trying to say. Well, this man, who we've almost not talked about or seen at all today, the Volante Racing number 70 Bentley, currently driven by Vanko Dimitrov. They took the pole position and they've led nearly every lap, and it's going to be a pretty perfect race. Our fourth different winner in as many races. Dimitrov and Volante go to victory lane here. What an excellent day for the number 7 Bentley, as it will be Alapicic second and Gravis third in the 627 as they all cross the line. Mahalan fourth, and it will be Slizik fifth. But this battle for 7th place as Harry Conway has a position, and he's going to get spun. The 404 is going to spin the 71 in the carousel. And Bart Macha certainly wouldn't have wanted to do that, but I'm sure he's going to argue, I had the inside.
That certainly looked like it from our perspective. I don't know how far along the inside that AMG was. However, it looks like he did leave the Ferrari enough room where the Ferrari kind of came over, but that is not for me to speculate. That will be one for the stewards on the final lap. So
it's the most un-Bart Macha thing I've ever seen. So you hate to give somebody a benefit of a doubt and not be objective about it, but that is not a Bart Macha thing to do. You'd have to imagine that he thought he had the overlap there. It's very close stuff. Drama on the final lap. Bart Macha will come home in the 7th place position. Sizek will be 8th. Geisler 9th. And Shidzaria the top 10 after the spin. And what about Ware in the 166 for High Silver? What a race they had. Sat on the pole, went all the way off the podium, was about 15 seconds behind, got back into the fight, got to second, had to go back to third after being passed, was patient. The 2 leaders crashed, and after that, they had the pace. They cruised to a win for the 166. The 95, a Scheckerman will finish second in that class. Solberg in the Honda. After all the things, the Honda was running last, and they finished third in class. Actually, they may or may not finish third. They finished third across the line anyway. We will have to confirm the final results. Now, that was 2 hours of racing. If you have friends, if you have family that enjoy racing, just show them that race. That was a heck of a race. Very fun indeed. I'd like to see the timetable at the end just to confirm that it may be that the 102 did get the 3rd finishing spot. But ladies and gentlemen, your winners overall, Volante Racing, the number 70 Bentley. Josh, we've had 4 races and 4 different winners, and the 141, the Ballas team, has retaken the championship lead, and I'm 6s and 7s. I don't know.
I mean, again, it all comes down to, as I say, we are seeing a mix of results, and I'm loving it. It's not like some racing series where one driver wins all the time and you can tell who will take it at the end, or even just a fight between 2 drivers. It feels like it's a fight between multiple teams, and there's still time that any team can take it. So I'm keen to see what I'm keen to see what comes of the rest of the season, Jesse.
I am as well. Well, we don't have the winners of the race, but we do have the team that finished second and have retaken the championship lead. We have Dominic Korshaven and Alapicic. Guys, what a crazy race. Talk us through your race.
Well, yeah, we had a really crazy race, especially the first stint, which I drove. Especially the fight with the McLaren. He was holding us like crazy, so we were losing like 1 second behind him for more than 30 minutes. I think we were battling him, and we were trying to force him to make a mistake, to lose somewhere on the track, and after 30 minutes he did that. So we took him, but the Bentley of number 70 was too far away ahead, so our task was just to finish in second place, which we did very nice. And yeah, I think we did a strong race. We had a nice pace, and that was pretty good race, I think.
That was Dominic Korshavin. Pitchik, you were running down Dimitrov. Do you reckon if you weren't held up as much that you could have fought for the win today?
I think that we have had the chance to win today because our pace was good in clean air. But this fight with McLaren and also my second stint began from low pressure on right side. I hit the curbs, and all my stint I was trying to manage my pace because my pressure on the right side on right side wheels of the car was too low. If I have a good pressure, I think I could close this gap to minimum.
Well, guys, we suspect you might be the championship leader at the halfway point in the season. What's your strategy going to look like for the final 4 races, knowing that you're the one on top?
Oh, I think we will prepare for this race for these races a lot. We also we are going to be very patient and careful, but we expect to have a good pace on the tracks of upcoming rounds. And also would like to say thank you for our Team Balassi Sport for organization and media support.
Oh, absolutely not a problem, man. I just realized I've been pronouncing it wrong this entire time. It's Balas, correct? Is how you would say that?
Balas.
Balas. Yeah, the Ukrainian team, lovely. I love to see the purple colors. It's instantly recognizable to us now. It's a pleasure to have you here. And guys, you may have finished second in the battle today, but you're winning the war. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice.
Well, there you have it. Those are your championship leaders after 4 rounds. Well, in 1 week's time, we will be right back with you here to bring you round 5 tomorrow night. Join us for some night owl racing. Me and Ryan Mawson on the call for that. And join them on Monday for some Lambo action. And again on Thursday for GT4 Championship. That championship GT4 has been absolutely wild. They went to Donington last night. In one race, they wadded up the entire field. In the second race, there were battles flag to flag, much like there was tonight in the Friday Enduro Championship. Joshua Devonshire, always a pleasure to have you.
Always a pleasure to be here with you, Jesse.
Well, folks, it's been an absolute honor to bring you this race. Thank you all for your kind words, your chats, and hanging out with us tonight. You can catch us tomorrow, Monday, Thursday, and of course, back here on Friday. We would love to have you like, subscribe, comment, all the stuff. And once again, we'd like to thank our partners, Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP for their support. Remember, you can get 25% off your driver coaching at Driver 61 by using our discount code. On behalf of everybody here at RCI, the stewards, the broadcast team, I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Joshua Devonshire and Jake the Bosmeister Boswell. Have a good night, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next time.